Welcome, all my fellow Washington brethren and sisters. I am your man and resident Washington football team fan, Lou. Thank you for joining me here on the Washington Football Report Live. In the words of my young son, I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I'm really excited about this offseason thus far, and it's far from over. It's really just begun. But I'm excited about what's going on. I'm excited about the direction of this organization. I'm excited to see what they do the remainder of free agency because I don't think they're done. I don't know if there are any more big moves coming. I would surmise no. Everything else that happens, I think, is going to be more, geared towards depth. You saw them sign a center. You also saw them sign a linebacker, David Mayo. I remember scouting him when he was at, I want to say it was Texas Southern or, forgot what school it was. I remember him very vividly when they drafted him. And those guys are depth. And those are the kinds of signings I think you're going to see moving forward. There may be one more notable name that, I wouldn't be shocked if they find a way to sign a Raekwon McMillan who hasn't signed yet. But I don't think you're going to see any more big names. The one guy that was out there that I think they were really interested in is Anthony Harris. We've talked about that already. I don't know what his market looks like. I don't know how much it's going to cost to get him to ink a deal. He's not in a position to take a one-year deal. He's not in a position to take a prove-it deal. So he's looking for long-term stability and guaranteed money. I don't know if that's something Washington can offer him at this moment, nor are they looking to offer a 29-year-old safety at this point of his career. So he's looking to get paid and cash in. I don't know if that's going to happen for him. I think he has probably had a rude awakening of sorts in this free agent market, as a lot of guys have had. A lot of guys had their bubbles bursted once free agency took off and they realized that the market they thought was going to materialize for them didn't. I mean, look at what happened with Will Fuller. I said that if I were Will Fuller, if I were Juju Smith-Schuster, these guys that are 24, 25, 26, I'm not taking a 3-4 year deal. I'm not taking, like Corey Davis did the right thing because that was his market. Okay. Anywhere from $9 to $11 million. He got 12 and a half. He did the right thing. And he'll still be able to double dip. If he performs well in New York with the Jets, he'll be able to get another bite at the apple. When you're 28 years old, like Kenny Golladay is, you don't have time to be signing another one-year deal. And then you're 29 next year and everybody's looking at like, hey, do I really want to sign a 29-year-old wide receiver to a 3-year deal with a bunch of guaranteed money? 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, $20 million a year? Do I really want to invest in a 29-year-old receiver for that kind of money? No, the answer is no. So he's not interested in taking a one-year prove-it deal. But you know who can? Will Fuller can take a one-year, $10 million deal or 11 or 12, whatever that number is, like he did with the Dolphins. That's the right move for him. If he balls in Miami, guess what? He can parlay that into a long-term deal when all that money hits next year or the year thereafter. So that's the smart move. And you're going to see a lot of players decide to do that. If I'm Juju Smith-Schuster and I don't think this is the right market for me, sign a one-year deal with the Jets. Ball out in New York for 1 year. Or go somewhere else where you think a quarterback's going to get you the football and get you some good numbers, and then hit the market again. And then hit it big. He's 24. He's got plenty of time to get another massive deal. But for some of these free agents, time's running out. And I've talked about this. Unlike basketball or baseball or hockey or some of these other sports where, you get guaranteed money, this is the sport where you don't have a ton of guaranteed money. And guarantees for your health and future in the sport aren't sure things. So while you're thinking about, I can get a one-year deal, I can prove it, bet on myself, and then go back in the market. What if you don't prove it in that 1 year? What if you get hurt? What if you have an injury-riddled 2021 season and all of a sudden your value plummets? That's what happened to Anthony Harris last year. He gets the franchise tag from the Minnesota Vikings. They have all these injuries on their team. The defense isn't any good, and he struggles because of it. And now you look at his market. He's 29. He's a year older. He's not coming off the season he was coming off of a year ago. It's a different market for him now. And the cap is reduced, not to mention. So a lot of different things to take into consideration. But those are other people's problems, not ours. I just know that I'm really excited about what we were able to do. I came into this process really just looking for Washington to come away with a receiver. That was my big takeaway. Like, hey, look, it'd be great to get, and again, I just wanted Darby back. I didn't expect an upgrade there. So I got more than I bargained for at the cornerback position. I said we needed to do something at quarterback. I wasn't comfortable with Heineke and Allen just coming back. We needed to do something. I would have rather gone you guys are going to kill me for this because you've been killing me for this, and that's fine. You know where I stand on this, but I'll reiterate it once more. I would have gone the Mitchell Trubisky 1 year, $2.5 million deal. Did you see that? I would have went that route. Did you see that deal he got to be the backup in Buffalo? I would have gone that route. Why the hell not? But I will admit, Ryan Fitzpatrick, better than Mitchell Trubisky at this moment. Okay? And so I understand what Washington is trying to do. I would have preferred going in a different direction, but I like the fact that there's competition at the quarterback position. We're going to see how it unfolds. He wins it, he being Ryan Fitzpatrick. Okay, cool. I told you. I may not agree with the decision, but I'm going to ride. That's what I do. I may not agree. And we're a family. I talk about this all the time. We're family. I'm not always going to agree with you. You're not going to always agree with me. Just like you don't always agree with your brother or your sister or your mom or your dad or your uncle or your aunt. But you're a family. So when it's all said and done, you come back together and you put all of those things aside for the good of the family, for the good of the relationship. That's what I'm going to do. That's what I always do. I can't tell you how many times I've disagreed with what upper management has done to this organization, especially over the last 2 decades with Daniel Snyder at the helm. But I've always rode. I've always gotten in the car and said, let's ride. Whatever is going on, let's put it aside. I'm going to get in the car. Let's ride. And that's what I'm going to do with Ryan Fitzpatrick. All right. I may not always love what happens, and there's going to be some rough terrain at times, but I'm going to ride. And I want what's best for this team, and I'm hoping that he or whomever gets to start is what's best for this team. So we'll see what happens. I'm excited about what this team has done in free agency. You get some more competition for the quarterback position. You upgrade the cornerback position, and you get a wide receiver. Not the one that I would have chosen, but that's fine. We knew that they were smitten with Curtis Samuel. We knew they wanted speed, and maybe Corey Davis didn't offer them that. I've talked about Corey Davis. He was, a unique wide receiver because he came with some faults. He came with some defects, okay? And he didn't necessarily come with the one thing that they were looking for this offseason, which was speed, legitimate, pure, unadulterated speed. He didn't necessarily have that. So they were looking for someone to come in and upgrade them in the speed department. He did that right away. It did Curtis Samuel. By signing him, we just got exponentially faster on offense. Because if you look around the rest of the guys on offense, we don't have anybody else that can run, okay? Steven Sims Jr. is much quicker than fast. We know AGG isn't a fast guy. Kelvin Harmon, not a fast guy. I could go down the list. Cam Sims, not a fast guy. Isaiah Wright, not a fast guy. The list goes on and on and on. We don't have a ton of speed. That's why they went and got Robert Foster last year, Jeff Badette. All of these guys that could run. Why? Because we were lacking in the speed department. They've upgraded that with the addition of Curtis Samuel, and I'm anxious to see now. I'm going to talk about something that I think is really interesting to look at as we get into this roster, as we start to look at the pieces that we've acquired and how they fit into the puzzle. But let's get to the comment section. I don't want to miss anything. I see we have some super chats, so I want to make sure we get those knocked out. Got a super chat here from McAllister Nicholas, thank you for the super chat. McAllister, Nicholas, greatly appreciate you. Got another one here from Joshua Farish, who writes, thank you first and foremost for the super chat. My man Joshua Farish writes, not a big fan of Fitzmagic, but going out on a limb and saying he will make the playoffs for the first time with us. I hope that is the case. I really am rooting for him. I don't know if you guys had a chance to watch his presser today. First of all, let me start by saying this, because a lot of times you guys misconstrue my frustration with a decision, and you confuse that as me not liking the individual. If you've watched my podcast for any amount of time, then you know the admiration that I have. I joke, I kid about Fitty Fitty all the time, but when we're actually having real, genuine conversations, and I've done this multiple times on my podcast, I've talked about the sheer joy that he brings to the game, the fact that this guy is just a lovable face in this league, how you can't replace guys like him. They don't make them like Ryan Fitzpatrick. I mean, what about the interview last year? I remember when he did it. I remember after the game having a big laugh about it on the podcast the following day. When they beat the Jacksonville Jaguars on a Thursday night, the Dolphins got their first win of the season, I believe. And he came to the podium. He had a great game. I mean, he was outstanding. The first half, he shredded Jacksonville. I think he was something like 13 or 14 for like 160 some odd yards and like 2 or 3 touchdown passes. And then they kind of just put it on cruise control in the second half because they realized Jacksonville wasn't a threat to them. And he was just outstanding. He could do no wrong in the first half of that game. And so obviously he was the player of the game. They interviewed him after the game and he had his chest hairs out, you know, and I can attest to that. I got taco meat as well. So I'm a part of the taco meat club. And he had his little Miami Vice shirt buttoned down enough to where his chest hairs were out, and they were talking about it. And he was like, hey, you know, he started talking to his wife. He's like, hey, make sure the kid's asleep when I get home. And, you know, he's just a character, man. And if you watched him today in his presser, he's got a sense of humor. He's always had a sense of humor. I mean, look at the Fitzmagic. They asked, when did Fitzmagic sort of come about? And he said, you know, the picture that would probably, you know, illustrate that and probably best puts it into focus is the, you know, Deshaun jewelry, you know, jacket press conference with the glasses on, like when he had all the drip on. But that's his sense of humor. That's his personality. Like, that's why guys gravitate towards him. Not just because of what he does on the field, because he plays balls to the wall on the field. We all know that. But it's also his infectious personality. You know, the guy's witty. He's smart. He's always got something funny to say. He's just a funny guy. And I think he's going to really fit in this locker room, and guys are going to gravitate towards him. But all of that is great. What are you doing on the field? That's what counts. That's what matters most. But he talked about wanting to make the postseason and how he hasn't done it. And it'd be great for him to do that, you know, and that it hurt him so badly last year to go from the high of the Week 16 Saturday night game versus the Raiders, coming off the bench and leading them to that improbable come-from-behind victory with the last possession and the face mask and the throw down the sidelines to Mac Hollins and getting them into field goal range for them to win. And then the following week, realizing that you got COVID-19, he said 3 days later, contracting COVID-19 and not being able to play in Week 17 and missing the postseason. He said it was, you know, one of the lowest points of his career. And so he's getting close to the postseason. Maybe he could break that drought here. We'll see. I'm not holding my breath, but again, I'm going to be here rooting like hell, whomever's starting. It doesn't necessarily even have to be Ryan Fitzpatrick. You know this to be a fact. It could be Kyle Allen. It could be Taylor Heineke. Whomever's under center, I'm going to be rooting like hell for that guy every single week to find a way to get the burgundy and gold on top. And if it's Fitzmagic, if it's Ryan Fitzpatrick, so be it. You know, and I hope he gets his first taste of the postseason here in Washington. That would be outstanding. Thank you for the super chat, Joshua Farish. DMV fan 123, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, sick off Curtis and Will Jack. Psyched, I guess is what you were trying to go for there. Psyched off Curtis and Will Jack. I think all of us are excited about the prospects of getting those guys. At the end of the day, my whole thought process was, hey, I laid out what I wanted them to do. If I were in control, not necessarily what I thought they would do. This is what I would have done. And one of those things was bring back Ronald Darby. And they decided to go in a different direction. I don't have a problem with that. My problem was I didn't want to create a hole. It was less about Ronald Darby. Okay, it's not like Ronald Darby had 6 interceptions and he was locking dudes down last year. He was really good, though. He was really good, but this is the first time he played 16 games in a season in his career, so that's something to take into consideration. And there were a lot of moving parts with that decision. I didn't have a problem with the decision. My problem was I didn't want a hole created on this roster that wasn't there before we went into the offseason. We had enough holes as it was. Going into the offseason, we needed receiver help. We needed to upgrade the linebacker position. We need some more tight end help. We could maybe use an upgrade on the offensive line if that's what they so choose to do. Like, there's so many other things that we could go out and get. I talked about needing another defensive end potentially to come in here and help. They may love James Smith-Williams. We'll see. I don't necessarily trust him or take Casey Toohill or any other guys that they had on the roster. So I felt like there were other needs available, free safety. Those all were things that we went into the offseason saying, hey, we need to do this. And I didn't want to add cornerback to the list, and not only to the list, but put it damn near at the top. So that was where the frustration came from with the Darby situation. And for them to go out and get William Jackson totally changed everything. And then getting a guy that we thought they were going to get all along. I tried to run away from that. I tried to put him on the Giants, and it was either them or us, pretty much is what it boiled down to. Either he's going to go back to Dave Gettleman, to the Giants, or he's going to come here to Washington. He ultimately came to Washington with Ron Rivera and Scott Turner. So got no qualms with that. None whatsoever. My biggest thing there is they have to use him right. If they don't use him correctly, then I have a problem. If they do use him correctly, then he's going to be a stud for us, and I'm looking forward to that. So we'll see what happens. But I think most fans are excited about those 2 signings as well. McAllister, Nicholas, double up, thank you for doubling up, McAllister, Nicholas. Greatly appreciate you. McAllister writes, do we draft a linebacker, wide receiver, or offensive lineman in the first round? If nothing else happens, and let's just assume for the sake of this discussion that we're having, that they don't do anything else of note in free agency. These are the 3 big moves that they're going to make. Everything else is going to be ancillary that they add to this team, and it's not going to impact their decision-making moving forward. So let's just assume Curtis Samuel, Ryan Fitzpatrick, and William Jackson III are all that they're going to acquire in terms of big names in the offseason. If they go into the draft with that setup, I don't think receiver is something you would do unless a guy that you had a top 10 grade on falls into your lap at 19. Don't think that's something they'll be looking to do. Similar to Dallas. Dallas wasn't looking to draft CeeDee Lamb. He fell into their lap, and they're like, well, we would have just been cool re-signing Michael Gallup and keeping Amari Cooper and not having to worry about it. But if this guy's going to fall into our lap, I mean, really, what are we supposed to do? Pass him up? If something like that were to occur, where, you're sitting there and Devontae Smith falls into your lap. That's one of the guys that they've had an interview with, and they probably love him. And he just falls into your lap. I mean, how do you pass that up, right? So I think receivers out right now, to me. Not to say that they won't draft one. If you're asking me in the first round, I think receivers out. I think linebacker and offensive line, the more that I listen to people talk that are in the know with this team, the more that I feel like they want to upgrade the left tackle position. And this is something that I didn't take into consideration. My fiance, she's opened my eyes to so many things. And one of the things that she constantly tells me is that you don't wait until something is broken to replace it. And, for me, that's a novel concept, because if it's not broken, it's still good. Almost like Homer Simpson. Hey, it's a little scratch on it. It's still good. It's still good. Like, it's still good. We don't need to replace it. And she's like, no, that's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. If something needs to be replaced, if it's getting old, or you could see it starting to break, don't wait until it actually breaks to then fix it. Then you're put into a position where you have to get a replacement, and maybe you have to now pay more money because you're desperate. Fix it while it still works. And so the left tackle position is a great example of, look, you got a bunch of guys on 1-year deals, essentially. Jaron Christian in the last year of his rookie deal. Cornelius Lucas on the last year of a 2-year deal he signed last year. And they just brought back David Sharp on a 1-year deal. All of these guys, 1 year remaining on their contract. Do you want to wait until none of these guys are under contract, or do you want to get one while these guys have a year left on their contract? It makes sense to go tackle if a guy you love is sitting there at 19. That said, I think it boils down to linebacker and, offensive line and safety potentially. If they love a guy like Trayvon Moehrig and he's sitting there at 19, which I would assume he will be, I wouldn't rule that out either. So I think it's down to linebacker and offensive line, to be honest with you. But again, I wouldn't rule out safety either if they don't do anything at that position. So. And again, quarterback too. Don't take quarterback off of the table just because they signed Ryan Fitzpatrick. If Mac Jones is the guy they love and they covet, and he's sitting there at 19, I wouldn't be shocked if they pulled the trigger on him either. So, thank you for that super chat, McAllister, Nicholas, and doubling up. Armand Brown, thank you for the super chat, Armand Brown. Greatly appreciate you. Armand Brown writes, why can't Kendall play free safety? He did in Kansas City. Perhaps he said we can get cornerback 2 in free agency. Desmond King, perhaps. Desmond King already signed. I think he signed in Houston. So Desmond King is off the board. And there are plenty of veteran corners out there, but they're the high-priced variety. They're not a Desmond King. I think Desmond King signed for like $4.5 million or something like that in Houston on a 1-year deal. And he's more of a nickel, but I mean, he's played out wide in his career before. But sure, Kendall could play free safety. Kendall could even play in the nickel, which we still, I think, have an issue at the nickel position. We're up and down there at best. So, I wouldn't say that he can't play somewhere else. But until you have a guy that replaces him, you need him at corner. You're paying him to play the cornerback position. So I think until you find a replacement, and that guy could come via the draft, who knows? He's going to be your other corner right now until you find someone to replace him, And then if you have another guy that you want to get on the field, that's when you're allowed to move Kendall Fuller around and maybe tap into that versatility that everyone's been talking about when we reacquired him from Kansas City. So we'll see what happens. JP, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My man JP writes, with all these OSU alums coming in, I have a funny feeling Washington might actually trade up for Fields in the draft. Look, we heard reports that Ron and company were really interested in Justin Fields. Again, everything's a smoke screen to me until it actually comes into clear view. This time of the year, everybody's a liar to me. Until I'm able to kind of discern the truth tellers from the liars, at this time of the year, everybody's selling stories, their version of the truth, if you will. So I don't subscribe to anything that we've heard this offseason until I can actually touch it, lay hands on it, tangibly be able to say, yes, that is in fact true. So we don't know. But to your point, just like the last regime with Bruce Allen and their love for Alabama players made it more, made us more susceptible to drafting them. I don't necessarily put too much stock into Ohio State players. They're really good. They get some of the most talented players in the country. So they're usually drafted rather high. And we've had some rather high draft picks of late. So it makes sense. And you can't go wrong going there if you know exactly what you're looking for and you've done your homework. And they've had some really good luck with Terry McLaurin and Chase Young. They're bringing in Curtis Samuel. They know Curtis from their time in Carolina, so they know what kind of character he has and what kind of a worker he is. So they're very comfortable with what they're getting in Curtis Samuel. And so we'll see what they decide to do and if they decide to add another Ohio State alum to the mix. It's a big one. We just had one, and that guy wasn't a great character guy, and he wasn't a great addition to this team in Dwayne Haskins. So you can't always just lump all of these guys in, but we will see. See what we've gotten. Got another super chat. This next one is from Dave Thomas. Davey Thomas. Thank you for the super chat, Davey Thomas, who writes, thanks for all of your work first and foremost. Love the direction of the team. Do you think offensive line is in need of an upgrade, or do you want an upgrade? I wouldn't mind an upgrade. I told you, I don't think they're as hell-bent on upgrading and when we say offensive line, we can narrow the focus to left tackle. Like, they're not looking to upgrade guard. They're not looking to upgrade, center, and they're not looking to upgrade right tackle. Like, if we're going to be honest about the offensive line, the only position they're looking to upgrade is left tackle, which is why they spent a third-round pick last year on Sadiq Charles. They're looking to upgrade that position. I've contended that unless they've already punted on Sadiq Charles as the left tackle of the future, which I haven't given up on, and I don't know if they have. I don't know how they feel about Sadiq Charles. If they say, you know what, we're just going to move him to guard and we're going to take our chances with the draft and getting a young guy. This is a deep draft at tackle. We like a lot of the players available. One should fall to us at 19. We're going to take somebody. If that's the thought process, I'm cool with that. I'm cool with that. If they say, nah, we're good. We got 3 guys on 1-year deals. We got Sadiq Charles, who we've got control over for the next 3 years on a rookie contract. Let's figure out what we have in this group. Because who's to say that Cornelius Lucas doesn't play even better this year than he did last year? You kick Sadiq Charles inside to left guard, and who's to say he doesn't tear it up at guard, and now all of a sudden you got a hell of a football player at guard, and Cornelius Lucas turns into a guy that you want to sign back on a 3-year, $27 million deal in the offseason. Who's to say that that's not what happens? I don't know. So I said all of that to say this. I don't know how they feel about offensive line. I wouldn't mind an upgrade, but I'm not thirsty for one. A lot of people seem to be. I'm not thirsty for one if they aren't. If they are, I'm cool with it. All right, but I'm not parched. I'm not looking for a left tackle beverage right now. I'm cool. All right, but if they're looking for one, I'm not going to turn it down. I'll pop the top on it and take a couple sips. I don't mind. But if you're asking me if we need to upgrade, I don't think it's a need necessarily as much as it is a want to. So we'll see what they decide to do. I've said this all along. I actually don't know how they feel. That's the thing that I can't gauge right now. Is I haven't gotten a sense of how they feel about left tackle, how they feel about Jaron Christian or Cornelius Lucas or Sadiq Charles. I don't know how they feel about that particular position. Once we get clarity on that, we'll know if tackle is something they really desperately would like to grab early on in this draft or not. And I don't know if we'll really get a sense of that until the actual day of the draft and they make their selection. I think they're going to keep that information kind of close to the vest. Thank you for the super chat, Davey Thomas. Big Money Sonny, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, Big Money Sonny, who writes, Fitz is a good dude, but he ain't it for us. I'm sorry. Can people lay off the fairy dust and focus on a real solution? Who do you think it is, Lou? I don't know. I wish I had an answer for you. I mean, look, at the end of the day, don't for 1 second think that this is what Washington wanted to do. Don't think that Ron and Marty Herney and Martin Mayhew sat down and said, all right, our first objective is to find a way to get Ryan Fitzpatrick to Washington. That's not what they sat down and came up with when they tried to figure out how to upgrade the quarterback position. That wasn't their first choice. You know, what ended up happening is Matthew Stafford might have been their first choice. Well, he ended up with the Los Angeles Rams. So then you go to option number 2, whatever that was. And maybe option 2 was, hey, let's see if the Raiders are interested in moving on from Derek Carr. They turned them down. Okay, well, what about Mariota? That might have been option 3. And they might have said, we'll give him up. But you got to know this. If you trade for him, there are escalators in his contract that will kick in that will make him a little bit more expensive than meets the eye. Maybe that turned Washington off, coupled with the fact that they would have to give up compensation. I've all along said they're going to end up releasing Marcus Mariota. Why not just wait it out? If no one trades for him, and because of that poison pill in his deal, he was going to either be asked to restructure or he's going to be cut. We heard today that the Raiders have asked him to restructure. And if Mariota wants to play hardball, which if I were him, I would, because there's a small sample size. He was able to provide for us on a Thursday night versus the Los Angeles Chargers, in which he looked damn good. And people said, what about Marcus Mariota? Act 2. You interested? The fact that that conversation is being had right now should mean that he wants to get to take advantage of it right now. Because next year, if he doesn't play, if Derek Carr is healthy for 17 games, out of sight, out of mind, now you're not as hot. We just talked about Anthony Harris not having the opportunity to take advantage of his value being the highest it's probably ever going to be because he got the franchise tag slapped on him. Mariota has a chance to get an opportunity with all these quarterbacks that are out here or were out here and all these teams starving for an upgrade. He had a shot. That window is closed dramatically because teams have picked off guys to put themselves in a position to not be desperate come draft day. However, if Mariota becomes available, somebody may say, you know what, this is a better option than what we currently have. And he could either get a big payday or get an opportunity to prove he deserves a big payday. Either way, Mariota was probably option 3. They didn't do that. Then they probably called the Jets. What's good with you and Sam Darnold? Then they found out what the Jets were looking for. Maybe the Jets said, hey, we kind of still want to do our due diligence on these quarterbacks in the draft. We'll get back to you. Washington said, you know what? We're good on Sam Darnold. And so now you get down the list. You're at option 5. And they say, all right, well, what's the best option in free agency? And that's probably how they got to Ryan Fitzpatrick. Because when you look at all the options, I kept telling everybody, I don't want any parts of Jacoby Brissett. I don't want Tyrod Taylor. I don't want Andy Dalton. And, you know, there was one more quarterback, I think, in there that got a deal as well that we talked about, Cam Newton. And I didn't want him. So at this point, you know, you were left with slim pickings. I mean, what are you going to do? They went with Ryan Fitzpatrick. I don't love it, as I've stated already, but I understand the thought process. What's the answer? They don't know the answer. That's why they signed Ryan Fitzpatrick, okay? If it were that cut and dry, they wouldn't have signed him. If they knew they were going to get a quarterback in the draft, they wouldn't have signed him. If they love a quarterback in the draft and they knew they were going to have a chance to get him, they wouldn't have signed Ryan Fitzpatrick. Or maybe they would have because of the tutelage that guy would receive from being around a guy like Ryan Fitzpatrick. But the real answer to your question is nobody knows. I don't know. They don't even know. That's part of the reason you sign Ryan Fitzpatrick, because it buys you time. It gives you another year to try to figure out the quarterback process and decision-making with that position, all the while still being competitive, which is what they're trying to foster in Washington. They're remaining competitive. So I like you, don't think he's it. You know, it's as much as he sat there and talked about how he's playing the best football of his career, and the numbers actually do support that, okay? He's not wrong in saying that he feels like he's playing his best football because he actually is. And if you've watched him, you know that he's playing much more competent football. But there's still the track record out there. There's still the no playoffs. There's still the inconsistencies, but as he's mentioned, he is playing better. He is seeing the field better. He is anticipating better. And if you can catch this inside straight, lightning in a bottle, why not us? That's ultimately where I am right now. Why not us? He's been to, and the opposition to that, and this is what I've been saying is, why you, okay? And a wise man said, why not us? My thing has been, I've been coming from it, the negative perspective. I've been looking at it glass half empty. Why us? Okay? Why is stop 9 for him? Why is team number 9 in year 17 going to be any different than the previous 8 stops in the previous 16 years? And the simple answer to that is, why not us? Why not us? A wise man once said, why not you? That's the real question. Why not you? Shout out to Mr. McCall for that one. Anyway, I can't tell you who it is. They don't know. I don't know. None of us do. Rob U, thank you for the super chat. Rob U, greatly appreciate you. Rob U, who writes, what up, Lou? Wasn't crazy about the Curtis Samuel signing, but he is a weapon. If AGG or Harmon step up, the wide receiver core could be solid. So, you know how I felt about Curtis Samuel. He's a weapon, as you mentioned. He is not a legitimate threat at the receiver position the way in a traditional sense. I don't really give a shit about that. I've stated this already. I just care about production. And the only way you're going to maximize his production is if you utilize him the way he was utilized in 2020 by Matt Rule and company. Okay, Joe Brady and Matt Rule got the most out of Curtis Samuel. He looked like a different animal in 2020 than in any other season I've watched him in. He had damn near 40 carries, 200 or so yards, or 300 yards, whatever it was, rushing, a touchdown or 2 in that fashion. And it wasn't just jet sweeps. It was jet sweeps. It was handoffs. It was tosses out of the backfield. Just different ways to get him involved. Then they put him in the slot. He kicked our ass from the slot. They put him out wide. They sent him in motion. They did different things to get this guy in space because he's a dangerous weapon in space. That's how you utilize him. And if you're not going to do that, if you're not going to maximize all of his talents, then you're not going to get the full spectrum of what this guy could be. And that's my issue. When you get a traditional wide receiver, you don't have to do all of those things. Like, they don't do that for Terry. He's a traditional wide receiver. They're not looking to get Terry on jet sweeps and things because you don't have to do that with a beast. You just say, line up and beat the guy in front of you. They're playing zone, find the hole in the zone, sit down, make a play. They give you one-on-one, beat his ass up. That's what the elite receivers do. That's what I wanted, a traditional number 2. He's not that, but he doesn't have to be that if they utilize him correctly. So, you know what's going to be interesting is when they go to their 3 receiver sets. So if we're in 11 personnel, and we were in 11 personnel quite a bit last season. What's interesting is if you're in 12 personnel or you're in 21 personnel, and that means you got 2 receivers on the field, I think he's going to be on the field with Terry. I feel confident in that. Maybe he's not. Maybe they're running the ball. They want a bigger, physical, more imposing receiver to block in the run game. That could be the case. But when you go to 3, whatever the case may be, when you go to 11 personnel and you got 3 receivers on the field, I think that's when you take the opportunity to start moving pieces around. We saw Terry do some damage from the slot last year. You don't want to just take that away. You don't want to just take away Terry and his ability to move around and be a weapon inside and out. We saw Terry evolve in that manner. But Curtis Samuel is at his best from the slot. So when you go to those 3 wide receiver sets, you got Terry as your X. I think you're going to move him inside, and he's going to be your Z. I think you need to find who's going to be that number 2 guy. Is it Cam Sims? Is it Kelvin Harmon? Is it AGG? Who's that next guy that when you slide Curtis Samuel, never, ever trust a man with 2 first names inside into the slot, and you have to insert another receiver? Who's that guy? That to me is the biggest question mark of the wide receiver position in the offseason is who's going to step up and say, I'm that guy. When we go to 11 personnel and we need to put another receiver on the field, not named Curtis Samuel, not named Terry McLaurin, who's that guy? Is it Cam Sims? Is it AGG? Is it Kelvin Harmon? That to me is the $1 million question when we start talking wide receivers as we get closer to camp. That's what I'm going to be focused on. Who's going to step up and assume that role of the alpha male that's not Curtis Samuel or Terry McLaurin? That to me is going to be one of the bigger competitions of the summer. Thank you for the super chat, Rob. You. Joshua Ferris, double up, thank you for doubling up, Joshua Ferris. Greatly appreciate you. My man Joshua writes, Lou, we are hurting at linebacker. What are we going to do? They're going to draft somebody. I told you, linebacker is one of the easiest positions to draft. I'm not saying it's easy to find a guy, but we found Cole Holcomb in the, 5th round, 6th round? I mean, you can find gems littered throughout the draft. You just got to know what you're looking for. All right. If you've got evaluating talent, an eye for evaluating talent, then you can find what guys fit what you're trying to do and what guys can play and what guys can't play. So for me, linebackers, you can find a guy, you can find a guy. I think they're going to look at the linebacker position a lot differently this offseason than they did last. I think when they first got here last year, Ron didn't know anybody. He didn't know what he had. They re-signed John Bostic because, remember, he watched the tape last year coming into the season, and he saw John Bostic running around. And remember, we all came away from 2019 saying, hey, John Bostic isn't half bad. He's an upgrade over Mason Foster. That's the way most of us felt. But at the end of the day, when you look at how Bostic was playing, I'm like, hey, he's cool. He's all right, but he's not real. And they figured that out. I think Ron figured that out. That, KPL, he's all right, but he's not real. John Bostic, he's all right, but he's not real. And I think now they're going to be a little bit more aggressive in trying to find some linebackers that can come in here and help. So you saw David Mayo being added as depth. They're going to still be aggressive, I think, in the draft. And I think I wouldn't be shocked if they draft 2 linebackers in the draft, to be honest with you. And don't forget, I don't know, how they feel about Josh Harvey Clemens, but he's coming back from COVID-19 and opting out. Again, I don't know if they're, what's been really amazing to watch, and it's not surprising, and I talked about this when these guys decided to opt out, is time waits for no man. I've realized that very early on in my life. Time doesn't stop because you decide that you got some shit going on. Things are going to continue to move. And when these guys opted out, they had the right to do that. And they did what they felt like was best for them and their families. And I don't have any issues with that. And I applaud them for making that decision. But you gave the NFL is about opportunity and chance. You gave other guys opportunities to take your spot. And so it's not like Josh Harvey Clemens was a fixture on this roster to begin with, and they don't know him. Ron doesn't know him, Marty doesn't know him, and Martin doesn't know him. So he's for them, they don't know him from Adam or Eve. So he shows up, and they're like, who the hell are you? Oh, I'm Josh Harvey Clemens. Oh, okay, cool. He's going to be down the depth chart. If he doesn't come in tremendous shape and wow them right away, his ass is as good as gone. So, again, we'll see what happens. I don't think they're going to bring back Reuben Foster. If they were going to do that, they could have done it already. Obviously, if they're interested in him after the draft, if they don't get what they were looking for at the linebacker position, maybe they kick the tires on him again. But it doesn't seem like anybody's going to fight them over Reuben Foster. They are aware of that, and I expect them to keep tabs on him if things don't go the way they want them to via the draft. But they're gonna draft some linebackers. And I wouldn't be shocked if they drafted multiple linebackers, sort of like the Ravens did last year. They drafted Malik Harrison out of Ohio State, and they drafted the kid out of LSU that was outstanding. And so I wouldn't be surprised if we did something similar to that, where you double down on the linebacker position and get you not 1 but 2. I wouldn't be shocked by that at all. Rob U, thank you for the super chat. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, Rob U. Greatly appreciate you. My man Rob U writes, we need Desmond King, and he would be cheap. Desmond King signed a 1-year deal with the Houston Texans. So want to keep you abreast of all those things that are going on. He signed with the Houston Texans. Let me make sure it was Houston. And, trust me, I know he signed. I want to make sure it's the Texans, though. I don't want to tell you the wrong team. Not that you give a shit, but I care. So I'm pretty sure it's the Texans. I've been keeping up with this stuff, you know. So I just want to make sure I'm not giving you some poor information here. But let me refresh my page and then see if they uploaded it. And yep, Desmond King, 1 year, $3.5 million. So he's a Houston Texan. So he's not available. But like I said, there's plenty of free agent corners available, but I don't think they're interested. I don't think they're really interested in signing anybody else at this very moment. I think that they're going to go the draft route. And I think that's the smart thing to do, honestly speaking. You get cheap labor, a young guy that they can try to mold. And they've already invested a ton of money. Look, they signed Kendall Fuller to a 4-year, $40 million deal last year. They just signed William Jackson to a 3-year, $42 million deal this year. They got enough money tied up in the secondary. And not to mention the Landon Collins deal that they inherited before they got here. They've got enough money tied up into the secondary, which is why I don't think Anthony Harris is coming here unless that deal gets cheap, you know. And I don't think he is in the position to take a 1-year prove-it deal at 29 years old. So I think he's looking for a multi-year contract with some guaranteed money, and I don't know if that's where Washington is right now in that process. They've just invested too much money in the secondary already. So I don't think they're going to do anything else. It would have to be something like Desmond King signing that 1 year, $3.5 million. It'd have to be something like that if they were going to bring somebody else in here. So we'll see what happens. Cooper Gorman, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Cooper Gorman, who writes, Fitzpatrick's last 16 starts. I saw this tweet already. I've talked about this tweet, not on the show, but I did on Twitter. But I know where you're going. I'm going to read it. Last 16 starts, 4,414 yards, 27 touchdowns, 13 INTs. Different quarterbacks the past couple of years. He's surrounded with 2 4-3 receivers gonna ball out. We'll see. You know, those numbers, I've always said, numbers can be misleading because you can manipulate numbers. You know, people say this all the time. People lie, numbers don't lie, people do. That's bullshit because you can make numbers say whatever the hell you want them to say. Those numbers may be accurate, but the way you frame them and the way you put them can really alter the perception of what those numbers mean. So, you know, when you look at, you know, those numbers for him are outstanding. Okay. But when you take a look at the scope of those numbers and how those numbers were amassed and how those numbers were over the last 2 years, because it's not 16 straight starts in one season. Okay. It's stretched out over 2 years. You don't know the circumstances behind the starts. You don't know when these starts were accumulated, how he came in. And these are starts, obviously, so he's not coming into a game off the bench or whatever the case may be. I just look at it like this. He's playing better football. I will acknowledge that. I have acknowledged that. The question isn't, is he talented? We've acknowledged that the only reason he's still in the league at 38 going into year 17 is because he can play. There are a lot of guys in the league that have made a bunch of money because they haven't played, or else they wouldn't still be in the league, i.e. Chase Daniel. The reason Chase Daniel has made as much money as he has is because he's been fortunate enough to be on teams where he hasn't had to play. If he did, he'd probably be out of the league right now. I can't tell you how many guys were collecting checks for years, sitting behind guys that didn't miss games. And when they finally had to play, the team said, oh my God, this guy is terrible. Jim Sorgi in Indianapolis comes to mind. Curtis Painter in Indianapolis comes to mind. For years, these guys are just collecting checks. Peyton Manning never got injured. Soon as Peyton Manning injures his neck and these bums have to get in the game and they realize, oh my God, these guys stink, they're out of the league. Ryan Fitzpatrick has actually had to play. And in order for him to stay, he's had to play well enough for teams to keep giving him opportunities. So the talent is here. The amazing thing is that he said he's playing his best football. Now, going into year 17, his 9th team. It's hard for me to wrap my brain around that you just now are getting it. After 16 years of doing something, you would think the light bulb would have come on a lot sooner. But he made some points. He said, look, I've had to train myself when to rein it in, when not to go for the jugular, essentially, because he didn't have a filter. And he said, look, one of the things guys love, that play with me about me is that I play with a level of fearlessness that really is starting not to exist in this league anymore. And he's right. You know why? Because teams don't want turnover machines. That's why Jameis Winston has to keep taking one-year deals, even though his talent is immense and probably better than 2/3 of the league. Because he can't take care of the football. And the one thing teams don't want is for their quarterback to turn the football over. So he's had to train himself, rewire his brain to not take unsolicited risks. But he's a gunslinger, and there's only so much rewiring you can do. So while those numbers are good, and for him they're great, it's still over 2 seasons. It's a different situation. Those are different games. I can tell you that there were some situations where they might have been some meaningless games in there and starts. At the end of the day, I don't worry about what guys have, done before they get here. What are they going to do here? I'm going to give him a chance. I'm going to wipe the slate clean, even though there's 16 years of empirical proof and data. I'm going to wipe the slate clean because this is what I always do. When you come here, my mom and dad, they have a sign in their house ever since I was a kid. And the sign goes something to this effect. And I'm going to see if I can recall the memory of it. It says, when you come here, what you see here, what you hear here, let it stay here. Otherwise, when you leave here, don't come back here. Okay? So just internalize that for a second. When you come here, what you see here, what you hear here, let it stay here. Otherwise, when you leave here, don't come back here. So what I'm telling you is, I don't worry about all of this shit that's going on before you got here. I just care about what you're going to do when you get here. I'm going to give him an opportunity to prove me wrong. I've got preconceived notions from 16 years of play at 8 different stops. Okay? I've got every right to feel the way that I do. But I'm going to clear the slate and say, let's see what you got here in Washington at 38 years old in year 17 with your 9th team. Let's see what you got. Maybe, as somebody said on the podcast yesterday or the day before yesterday, the 9th team is the charm. We'll see. Hope you're right. Hope he does ball out. I'm rooting for it. I really am. Jordan C., thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Before I read that super chat, I want to encourage all of you out there to sub up to the Louie T Network for more great content. Turn on your notification bell so you don't miss a thing. And again, if you haven't hit the like button, please do so. I appreciate that Over 600 of you out there watching currently, only 125 likes. I appreciate the 125 of you that hit the like button, but there are over 475 of you who haven't. So if you would please hit the like button. I greatly appreciate you, and I'm thanking you in advance. Jordan C., thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, is Micah Parsons a generational talent like Chase? If so, what if we move up to grab him? Mike is the QB for the D. Continue to build that mean defense, then grab a quarterback in the third round like Newman or Mond. No, Micah Parsons isn't a generational talent. He's very talented, but we've seen linebackers come in here like Devin White, just a couple of years ago. So he's not a generational talent. And I would tell you he's not better than Devin White, to be honest with you. After watching Devin White do what he's done in such a short period of time. But he's built differently from a Devin White, and he could do some things. But Devin White had 9 sacks last season, and Micah Parsons is still figuring out the position. Devin White came into the NFL polished, ready to go. You knew what you were getting. That's not the case with Micah Parsons. He's still growing. He didn't play in 2020. He opted out. So there's a lot of question marks there. There also are some off-the-field questions about his character. And so, no, he's not a generational talent, nor is he necessarily the most upstanding citizen either. Again, I don't know anything about him personally. Can't confirm nor deny any of the allegations made against him. I just know that that's not a guy that you would classify as generational talent. That said, I wouldn't have a problem moving up to draft him. Okay, the upside is tremendous and through the roof for that dude. However, I would say that there's so much depth at linebacker. We've talked about that. I've broken down the linebacker position. And the reason I chose to do the linebacker position so early was because of the depth of the position this year. Unlike past years where if you wanted something elite, you had to move quickly. And then usually the first 2 or 3 guys were there, and then there was a steep drop-off. We've seen that the last few years. Last year, you saw the Oklahoma linebacker. We saw the LSU linebacker, and we saw Jordan Brooks, who I didn't think was a first-round pick out of Texas Tech, all go in the first round. But there was a drop-off. That's why teams felt the need to get those guys because, there was a bit of a drop-off at the position. And the year before that, it was the 2 Devons, and then it was a drop-off. This is not the case this year. There is depth throughout the linebacker position for the first 3, maybe even 4 rounds, depending on how quickly these guys go. So I wouldn't really necessarily feel pressed to move up and get a guy like Micah Parsons. I told you, Nick Bolton makes a ton more sense for me than a Micah Parsons does. I really think that Nick Bolton, if he can get better in coverage, and I think that's just a process of him being coached up. If he gets better, he's got all the tools to be a dangerous middle linebacker in this football league. So, like I said, there are other options available. I wouldn't necessarily feel like moving up for him. If we move up, I've stated, I'd rather it be for a tight end that can stretch the field vertically, i.e. Kyle Pitts, or a quarterback. That would probably be my preference. But, standing pat at 19 or moving back are options as well. We'll see what they decide to do. As far as grabbing a quarterback, I do not like Jamie Newman at all whatsoever. Kellen Mond has grown on me. I've talked about how much better he has gotten over the life of his career at Texas A&M and how much he's grown as a quarterback. So you see the development there and you feel like, hey, he's taking steps. Maybe he can take more steps. I'm not the biggest Kellen Mond fan either, but I'm a much bigger Kellen Mond fan than I am Jamie Newman. Really disappointed in Jamie Newman. I think he's got a lot of growing to do. I don't know if there's enough growing for him to do to evolve into a real threat at the quarterback position at the next level. We'll see. Him missing 2020 was such a big deal. And look, again, he opted out, had the right to do that. Don't, think he did anything wrong by opting out. He did what was best for him and his family, but man, he could have used that year at Georgia in the SEC. That is for certain. Thank you for the super chat, Jordan C. Raw Rebel. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Raw Rebel writes, what are we doing with Reuben Foster? Can he be viable at linebacker for us? He's not currently a member of this football team. Reuben Foster, as of yesterday, became an unrestricted free agent. So Washington and every other team around the league can sign him. We haven't heard Reuben Foster's name. Nobody's thinking about him. He's an afterthought. He hasn't played football in damn near 2 full seasons. Nobody's thinking about Reuben Foster. So if Reuben Foster is someone that they are interested in, they can bring him back if they want to. If they don't get what they want in the draft, Reuben Foster is a guy they should be able to call up and he will still be available. I think that is the case. I think they think that's the case. Remember, Ron is all about building culture. Ron has a daughter. We know the allegations levied against Reuben Foster. He did not sign Reuben Foster. He didn't sign or put in a waiver claim for Reuben Foster when he was in Carolina. That was not his decision. Reuben Foster was here when he got here. I don't think Ron is a massive fan of Reuben Foster. Then he gets injured. And so the one thing that Reuben might have been able to do to win the organization over was to play well. He's done his part in terms of keeping himself out of trouble off the field. But if you're not worth the headache on the field, then I think at this point they much rather move on with guys that, they don't have to answer questions about their past. And 2, again, I think they rather just go in a different direction. So I'm going to be honest with you. When J.P. Finley on March the 10th, Ron Rivera had an interview, a press conference with the media, a Zoom conference call. And J.P. Finley brought up Reuben Foster. And Ron Rivera sounded I got the same feeling after the answer he gave when J.P. Finley asked him about Reuben Foster. Did he have a year left on the contract because he was on IR? Did it toll, or was he going to be a free agent? And he said, no, he's a free agent. You know, his contract's up. I got the same feeling that I felt when Ron was asked about Kyle Smith during the season. And I said, oh, my God, that shoulder felt cold. I was like, did it just get a little brisk in here? Can you shut the door? I feel like a draft coming on. Ron was real cold with his answer of Kyle Smith. We saw what happened to him. I felt the same way when he answered the question about Reuben Foster. Sort of dismissive, like, yeah, Reuben's fine. Next, type of deal. So I don't get the feeling that Reuben Foster's going to be back. I could be wrong. But if they wanted him back, just think about all the moves they made already. Tendering guys, bringing back Danny Johnson. If they wanted him back already, I think he'd be back already. That's just my sense. That's just my feel. Thank you for that super chat. Raw Rebel. Got another super chat here from Stacy Shakur. Thank you for the super chat, Stacy Shakur, who writes, we're going to be on TV a lot this year. Watch. I think you might be on to something there, Stacy. Which I used to not like, but Ron's plan. Still regret going for 2. And please take Xavier Collins with the 19th pick overall. Please. So let's take this thing piece by piece. I do think we're going to have about 3 or 4 primetime games this year. We won the division. Ron's turning this thing over. How many times have you heard in the last 72 hours by pundits and people that are closely connected to the league, ex-players, this, that, and the third, on Twitter and on national television, how many times have you heard people say, oh my God, the Washington football team, they're going to be so exciting this year? Don't think that that's falling on deaf ears with the National Football League and the league. All right? And those who make the schedule and things of that nature. Don't think that they aren't paying attention to these things. You got guys like Torrey Smith saying, man, I can't stand Washington, but I'm falling in love. Ron Rivera's making me fall in love with this team. He's getting the warm and fuzzies. You got guys like Dan Orlovsky talking about how he's excited about this team. Field Yates is talking about how exciting this team's going to look. And they're not alone. This has been, for the last 72 hours, this fiesta of praise for signing all of these guys and how exciting this offense is going to be now with Curtis Samuel and Ryan Fitzpatrick letting it fly and this, that, and the third. That's going to resonate. We're going to end up on television. Not to mention we won the division last year. And we have Chase Young. And he's marketable. You can sell Chase Young to a national audience. You know, the thing that always used to be frustrating is when we didn't have a quarterback. When Kirk left and they would put us on national TV, we didn't have one single guy you could put on the marquee. So they started putting Ryan Kerrigan up there. And I'm like, that's the best you got, man. That's when you know your shit is weak. Your shit is weak. Best you can do is Ryan Kerrigan. Not to shit on Ryan Kerrigan, but it's Ryan Kerrigan, man. You know, everybody else puts their quarterback up there. They got a big-time wide receiver. They got a shutdown corner like Jalen Ramsey or something like that. We had to put Ryan Kerrigan up there. And I said, man, it's rough. It's rough out here, man. Now, if they got nothing else, to just put Chase Young on the marquee. And I'm fine with that. So we are marketable again. For the first time in a long time, we're marketable again. So I expect no less than 3 primetime games. It could easily be 4. Now, you said you still regret going for 2. I didn't have a problem with it. We didn't convert one single 2-point conversion last season. That's the part that I have a problem with. Not going for 2. I thought it was the right decision. And it wasn't a great play call, though. But I digress. And take Xavier Collins with the 19th pick. That's on the table. He's definitely in consideration at 19. But I've already said he's a special breed, and you have to have a special plan for him. Like, you don't just line him up at middle linebacker and say, all right, Xavier, play some middle linebacker for us. You got to move this dude around. You got to have multiple fronts and looks and do different things for Xavier Collins to be maximized. Similar to Curtis Samuel needing to move him around and do multiple things with him. Same thing can be said for Xavier Collins. Nick Bolton is more of a line up at middle linebacker, and as a wise man or a former guy here, I can't call him a wise man, used to say, you just line them up and crack skulls and strike iron, okay? Nick Bolton is that kind of guy. And I think that's the kind of defense that we have. So we'll see what they decide to do. I wouldn't have a problem with Xavier Collins at 19. Trust and believe that. Got another super chat. This one is from Rob U. Thank you for tripling up. Rob U, who writes, Will Fuller, Hassan Reddick, Gerald Everett, Jayon Brown, and John Ross all signed very modest contracts. Were they not on our radar? We don't know the answers to any of those questions. I can just tell you that Will Fuller wasn't signed to a modest contract. It's a 1-year deal. But, I mean, what it amounts to is like a franchise tag. Not what the franchise tag would cost for a wide receiver. Be a much higher number. But it's a 1-year, I think it's something like, let's look it up. Well, I guess. It's 1 year. It's either like 10 million and it can get up to like 12 or 13, or it's 12 million and it can get up to like 15 or 16 million. Let's take a look-see at what that deal that he signed with the Dolphins looks like. And remember, he's suspended for the first game of the season. I think that also had something to do with his market being a little light as well. I mean, it's just one game, but still. We've talked about all the different issues with him and signing him and what it would entail. 1-year deal worth more than $10 million with significant upside. So we don't know the exact numbers, but it's $10 million. And I'm assuming that thing could get up to 13, 14, maybe even 15 with incentives, meaning, you know, he's got to clear 1,000 yards receiving. He's got to play in 80% of the snaps this season, you know, things of that nature. If he can hit some of those escalators, that deal climbs up. But that he did the right thing. That's what I would have done. I've advocated for guys like him and Juju Smith-Schuster, and even to a lesser degree, Kenny Golladay, who's much older than the previous two, Will Fuller and Juju Smith-Schuster. He's up there in age. It's a lot easier to take a 1-year deal when you're 24 like Juju Smith-Schuster or you're 25 like Will Fuller. It's different when you're 27 as Kenny Golladay is, and you take a 1-year deal and then next year you're 28. But I would take a 1-year deal if I were Kenny Golladay and roll the dice and see what the hell happens. If it doesn't come up the way you want, then you bet on yourself 2 years in a row and you didn't get it done 2 years in a row. That's on you. But we'll see what happens. As far as the other guys are concerned, Hassan Reddick, I never thought he was coming here. And Hassan Reddick is interesting because he's fool's gold. I think he signed a 1-year deal to go to the Panthers, which makes a ton of sense. He was coached by Matt Rule at Temple, so Matt Rule knows him. And we've seen Matt Rule acquire a bunch of guys he's coached at the collegiate ranks, whether it be Baylor or Temple. So that makes a ton of sense. But let's see what Hassan Reddick signed for. I know it's a 1-year deal. I think it's like 7.5. 1 year, $8 million, including 6 of it guaranteed. So last year might have been fool's gold with Hassan Reddick. Remember, I wanted Hassan Reddick in whatever draft he was in. I was intrigued by Hassan Reddick, and he went off the board like 2 or 3 picks before we took, I want to say that was the Jonathan Allen draft, I believe it was, that Hassan Reddick was selected in. And I don't think the Cardinals picked up his 5th-year option, and that's why he's available a year earlier than Jonathan Allen. But I remember wanting him that draft, and the Cardinals taking him. But I didn't think they utilized him correctly. They had him playing stand-up linebacker off the ball instead of handing the dirt edge rusher. They put him as an edge rusher this year, and he got 12.5 sacks. So the jury's still out on Hassan Reddick as to what he is and can he duplicate what he did in 2020. And remember, he had that big game against the Giants that accounted for like 5 or 6 sacks. He was ridiculous in that game. But I don't think they were interested in Hassan Reddick, and I don't blame them for that. Gerald Everett was the one where I was like, man, we couldn't have done that. Same thing with John Ross. I felt, and I Jayon Brown was interesting, but I thought, remember, I cooled off on Jayon Brown, especially when he got injured. I was like, really wanted to see him play the rest of the season and see what he actually did. I was cool with them not going after him. Gerald Everett and John Ross are the two I'm looking at and saying, we couldn't have done that. Just Gerald Everett is athletic. He can block, and he just gives you another guy. Not going to cost you a lot. It's a 1-year deal that he signed in Seattle with the Seahawks. Like, you couldn't have done that. They obviously felt like they didn't need to do that. So I don't question. I don't question. I just say, Tony P56. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My man Tony P56 writes, damn, Lou, where you from? Cyst, like sliced. I have no idea. I don't even know what that is. Without the L, hyped in the DMV. I'm not from this area. I have no idea what the slang is. I'm from the 757. We steal slang from everybody else. We actually don't have our own slang. We got a few things that we say, but I'm not from here. So it's pronounced cyst, sliced without the L. So siced. So if I'm being literal, sliced without the L is siced. Okay. And that means hyped. Again, I'm not from the DMV. I just migrated here. Okay, so y'all got to get me up to speed on the slang and how y'all do things up this way. I appreciate the lesson, though. Anyway, do you still feel like Fitz equals no playoffs? Yes, I do. Until he proves me wrong, I do feel that way. But as I've mentioned, I'm wiping the slate clean, and I'm going to give him a chance to prove me wrong. All right. I'm not going to keep spewing negativity. I'm not going to keep doing that. I've said my piece. You know how I feel, and we move on. But do I think this season ends in playoffs with Ryan Fitzpatrick at quarterback? No, I don't. If he starts, that is. And he could not start. As people have eloquently laid out, it's a competition. I contend that his money suggests that it is a competition, but it's one that they expect him to win. So we'll see. But yes, Fitz equals no playoffs for me. But again, slate clean, giving him an opportunity. We'll see what he does. Thank you for the lesson, Tony P, man. I really do appreciate that. Don't watch a man drowning and don't throw me a life raft, okay? Appreciate you, all right? So it's siced. Siced. So that's hype. I won't be using it, so you don't have to worry about me using that, but I appreciate it. Trevor Patch, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. As always, my man Trevor Patch writes, think Ron's been too often. Let's see. Let me see if I can make sense of this. Think you might have made a mistake here. Think Ron's been bit too often by paying injury-prone players that aren't there when you need them. Hold up on Brandon and on guaranteed money. Same with Darby. No, go on Hunter Henry. Brandon's on Ron's. Ron's Luke. I don't know if that was a mistake as well. But I see where you're going with this. And I think there is hesitation, but if that's how you feel about Brandon Sheriff, then you just let him walk in free agency. You just let him go. Just like the Bills didn't slap the franchise tag on Matt Milano, but they figured out a long-term deal. Like, you just roll the dice. If that's how you feel, you're not sure, then you don't put the franchise tag on him. Because you say you don't want to pay him guaranteed money. Well, guess what? In 2 years, you've paid him $32 million if you don't find a way to work out a long-term deal. You still paid him a bunch of guaranteed money. It doesn't make any sense. That's the whole premise of me saying, this is dumb. You don't put the second straight franchise tag on him unless you plan on doing what the Giants did with Leonard Williams. And that's signing him to a long-term deal because you're just giving away money. Essentially, as a favorite of mine used to say, he's a guard. You're paying $32 million for 2 years for a guard. Come on, man. And I love Brandon Sheriff, but he's a guard. Okay? Sign him long-term or turn him loose. That was the objective this offseason. Either you love him enough to be able to overlook some of the injuries. He gutted through an injury last year. He played for you in about 14 or 13 games. You got to be able to overlook the missed games and say, all right, this is a guy part of the culture that we want to create in Washington and we want him moving forward. And you lock him up. Or you'd say, all right, man, I don't trust you. Go ahead and get your money somewhere else. But we can't play this game. You tying up $18 million on Brandon Sheriff right now. That money could be spent elsewhere. So if that's truly how Ron feels, then you were supposed to turn Brandon Sheriff loose. But I understand what you're saying on him and Darby and Hunter Henry. I get it. You know, those guys don't have, and Will Fuller neither. You know, none of those guys have sparkling, track records with injuries. And one of the things I found refreshing is I felt Curtis Samuel being injury prone, but after his first season where he dealt with injuries, he's been relatively healthy. The last 3 seasons. I think it's something like, 14, 15, and 16 games he's played in. Or 13, 15, and 16. Either way, he's playing most weeks is essentially what I'm saying to you. So that was a pleasant surprise. A very pleasant surprise indeed. Jordan like the GOAT. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Jordan like the GOAT writes, what do you think we should do at DB? It's going to be interesting. I think they view the safety position as being in good hands from a depth perspective. I think they love Shays. They love what they got out of Jeremy Reeves as well. I think they love what they got out of Cameron Curl. That was a revelation for them. Pleasantly surprised at what they got. They have Landon Collins on the roster. I don't think they love Landon Collins, to be honest with you. But, at this point, they don't really have a choice right now. But he's here. And I think they would love to add one more free safety. I don't think it's a necessity as much as it is something they would really like to do. I would be shocked if they didn't add another safety in this year's draft. I'd be shocked, honestly. As far as corner is concerned, they got 2 more years of Jimmy. So if they like Jimmy as a nickel, cool. You went out, you signed William Jackson the third. You got Kendall Fuller for another 3 years. Both of those guys' contracts will expire at the same time in 3 years. So you got 2 starters there. I think they need more depth. Obviously, they signed back Danny Johnson, so that gives you a little bit of depth. Still think you need to add at least 1 more corner to complete the cipher. They're going to bring some other guys to camp, whether it be undrafted guys or some of the guys that were on the roster last year that didn't make the team, that were on the practice squad, that they're going to bring back and continue to work with. So trust and believe that we'll look up and they'll have depth at the cornerback position and at safety. I think they actually like the depth that they have, but I think they would like to add to that at some point. Thank you for the super chat, Jordan, like the GOAT. Gary Clutch Clark, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Gary Clutch Clark writes, should we improve our running back depth in the draft? Miller, Barber, yawn. If a guy like Michael Carter is available in the second or third, I'm taking him. Again, to spend that kind of draft capital on a running back suggests that you want to play this guy right now. And they just spent a 3rd round pick on a running back last year that played really well for them. They're not looking to invest in another high draft pick on a running back. I don't think that's what they're going to do. If you told me that they spent a 6th round pick on a running back, I'd believe you. But to think that they would take a running back like Michael Carter, who is very talented, in the 2nd round at 51, suggests that you're going to bypass other opportunities to get players that you feel like can impact you right now. Because, I mean, how often is Michael Carter going to be in the game impacting the team? You know, with Antonio Gibson, obviously, if he's healthy. So I just don't see running back being something high on the list of needs, if even being on that list at all. When I made my list of needs, I didn't have running back on it because I could see them, you know, taking a flyer on a guy in the later rounds. I could see them getting an undrafted guy, inviting him to camp, and, you know, going that route. You know, they got 2 veterans already. They re-upped on Lamar Miller, so that was interesting to me. It was kind of telling. You know, doing that means we're not really looking to do anything aggressively at the running back position. Because for me, I don't know what money they're paying Miller. It can't be much. But why not just take a flyer on Marlon Mack if you're going to do that? He signed a 1-year, $2.5 million deal to go back to Indy. And he might have just wanted to go back to Indy. But why not call him up and say, they're giving you 2.5, I'll give you 3. Come here and prove it. But again, I don't think that's what they're looking for. And I don't blame them. Don't blame them at all. Let's see. J Mart, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. J Mart writes, would Van Noy have been a good fit? He was looking to go back to New England, man. Like, let's be honest. I talked about that. I said, look, anybody with 2 eyeballs can see where this is going. Like, you don't have to be a rocket scientist. You don't have to be following this situation very closely. You know where this is ending. You know where this is heading. He's going back to New England. So that wasn't a surprise. Sure, he would have been a fit here. Like I've said, anybody was an upgrade over pretty much what we put on the field at linebacker outside of Cole Holcomb. So it really didn't matter what you did. You were going to upgrade the position because you couldn't get much worse. At times, I thought they got better as the season wore on, and KPL had his moments, but for the most part, they were underwhelming, KPL and John Bostic. So, yeah, Van Noy would have been a good fit, but he was going back to New England. We saw that coming a mile away. Thank you for the super chat, Irish. Greatly appreciate you. Big Al, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, Big Al, who writes, what up, Louie? Should we upgrade our nickel cornerback and replace Moreland? I advocated for it. I told you I think Moreland is more comfortable outside as a boundary corner. Everybody's not made for the slot. I think Jimmy, it doesn't have a great feel for the space around him. And when you're out on the boundary, there's not as much real estate that you have to cover. You don't have to worry about somebody being on the outside of you because you've got out of bounds. He doesn't have great spatial awareness to me. You know, he doesn't have a good feel for mid-pointing a receiver and trying to take away guys and reading quarterbacks' eyes and allowing that to take him to the football in terms of being in space. I think he's too slow to read quarterbacks' eyes and know what the offense is trying to do to him and route combinations. And maybe he'll get better at that. Maybe year 3 is the charm for him. And all of a sudden, light switch comes on and Jimmy's starting to just pick shit off. But I think he's more suited for outside work. And if that's the case, I thought we could have upgraded the nickel this offseason. But obviously, they didn't do that. So maybe they got plans on switching some things around. For all I know, on first and second downs, Kendall Fuller could be playing outside. And then on third downs, they kick him inside the nickel and put Jimmy outside on third downs. I don't know. That could be a thing. They did it in Denver with Chris Harris Jr. once upon a time, where he played on first and second downs outside because he was such a good nickel. He was the best nickel in the league. They kick him inside on third downs, obvious passing situations, and have him take away the other team's best corner because they had Aqib Talib and Bradley Roby, so they could make those type of moves. So we'll see. I wouldn't bank on that happening though, but something to consider. I would have replaced Moreland or at least brought in some competition. But and you know, in this league, you need 4 legitimate corners, 4 dudes you can count on, 3 bona fide corners, and then it'd be nice to have a 4th. So, yeah, I would have brought in somebody, but you already know that. Chance D. Scott, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Chance D. Scott. Farrah Cody, thank you for the super chat. Farrah Cody writes, Washington signed David Mayo, I heard. Yeah, linebacker out of, I think he went to Texas State. If memory serves me correct. If you want a breakdown of him, I broke him down in the 2016 draft, I believe. He was drafted by let me look him up. I know I broke him down. I remember when the Panthers selected him because they had another white linebacker named A.J. Klein, and he reminded me of A.J. Klein. Give me 1 second. David Mayo. Let's see. I bet you it's Texas State. Yep. Texas State 2015 draft, actually, is when he was selected. He was selected in the 5th round of the 2015 draft by the Carolina Panthers. I remember breaking him down, and not a tremendous athlete. He's not slow, but he's not a game changer or anything of the sort. But he'll give us good depth. You know, he's really good against the run. Not a guy you want in the game when it's an obvious pass situation, and they understand that. They've had him before, so they know what they're getting themselves into. But yes, Washington signed David Mayo, and they signed a center. Let me see if I can grab that name for you. Let's see. Let me go to my Twitter because it should be all over my Twitter because I think I liked like 16 tweets with those guys in there. Let's see. Let's go ahead and refresh this thing. We signed David Mayo and Tyler Larson. So David Mayo and Tyler Larson were the 2 guys that we signed, both from Carolina. Mayo actually played with the Giants, I think, more recently than Carolina, but still, both of them from Carolina. Got another super chat from King of the North. Thank you for the super chat. You know who it is. My man, King of the North. Really appreciate you. King of the North writes, definitely head coach don't typically start quarterbacks prone to turnovers. All three of ours are turnover prone. Maybe Ron isn't that conservative, or he's letting Scott pick, or he thinks they can coach these guys up to play more discipline. Your thoughts? I don't know if I subscribe to the notion that all three of the quarterbacks are turnover prone. I think two of them have proven that. It's hard for me to co-sign on Taylor Heineke fitting into that category at this point of his career. I mean, the guy's got 2 starts under his belt. We've seen him in 2 games, and the one turnover he has in Washington was a tipped, batted pass at the line of scrimmage. So he looked good against Carolina in that the late stages of that ball game. Didn't turn it over in that game, and he did have one throw that got away from him that should have been picked off. Where you're like, whoa, what the hell was that? But he had the one turnover against Tampa in the playoff game, and that one was batted in the air. So I don't know if I would put him in the category of turnover prone, but yeah, coaches, the one thing they try to steer clear of is turnover prone guys, because they don't give you a chance. When your defense is playing well, the last thing you want is a turnover and the other team starting deep in your territory when the defense has been kicking ass. Like, there are some games this season where you say, come on, man. We win that game if not for the turnovers. The first Giants game comes to mind. You get the interception thrown by Kyle Allen. That leads to the first Giants touchdown. And then the second turnover by Kyle Allen is a scoop and score. And those were the only 2 touchdowns the Giants scored in the game, and it turned out to be enough. Like, that kills you in games where if you just take care of the rock, you'll win. That Giants game the first time around was a prime example of just don't turn it over and we win. So coaches really frown upon that, but turnovers are going to happen. It's a part of the game. You just try to minimize how often they take place. So I think Scott Turner feels like Kyle Allen with more experience. I think Ron feels this way too. I think Ron likes Kyle more than he does Taylor. I think Scott likes Taylor more than he likes Ron. At the end of the day, I don't think either one of them are convinced that either one of those guys are the guy. I just think they have their preference. At the end of the day, I look at the quarterback situation and they feel like one of the biggest problems last year, and I talked about this last year when we would do film breakdowns and I would put up clips on IG. I would talk about how many opportunities to push the football down the field and vertically that we would turn down in order to check it down to J.D. McKissick or to check it down to Logan Thomas. And I'm like, Terry's screaming wide open or Steven Sims is screaming wide open. And if you got balls, you pull the trigger there. That's a 50-yard touchdown or that's a 37-yard catch down to the Giants 8-yard line. And instead, we're checking it down for a 4-yard gain and asking JD to make 2 dudes miss. And you're just like, it's hard enough in this league to matriculate the ball down the field. You get an opportunity for a chunk play, you got to take it. Ryan Fitzpatrick isn't afraid. And we saw a glimpse of that when Taylor Heineke played against the Buccaneers. Because in that game, we got more chunk plays in that one game than we probably had in our final 6-7 games combined. Okay? In that one game against Tampa, he took more shots down the field. We got more chunk plays in that game because a guy saw the field and was willing to push it than probably the last 5-6 games combined. And that, to me, is a microcosm of them, looking at the quarterback position as a whole and saying, you know what? Let's get a guy in here that's going to take some risks, that's going to push it down the field, that's going to give us opportunity to score more points. Again, we didn't score 30 points not one single time last year. You know how hard it is to do in an NFL season? We did hit 40. I grant you that. We didn't score 30 one time. Excuse me, that's hard to do. It's really hard to do in today's NFL. So I think they feel like they can coach these guys, get them more comfortable, and have the turnovers be reduced. But I don't think it's a situation where they feel like these guys can't get better. Like with Kyle Allen, he's been labeled as turnover prone, but he doesn't have a ton of starts. You know what I'm saying? Like we gave him this label after like 8 starts in Carolina. 8, 9 starts, whatever it was that season. 12, it might have been 12. Let's see. I hate guessing. Why guess when you got the ability to look it up? Let's see how many times Kyle Allen started for the Panthers in 2019. Kyle Allen started in 12 games in 2019. Started 1 game for us last year and 4 games for us last year, and 1 the year before that for Carolina. So he's got 17 total career starts. Essentially 1 full season and then another game. And we've labeled the man as turnover prone. What are we doing here, folks? Like, and that's what I'm saying is like, you got to give a guy an opportunity to show that he's learned something. He was showing us that. Let's see what, I mean, he made some questionable decisions against Dallas and against the Giants. He had 4 touchdowns and he had 1 interception. So it's not like he was 4 touchdowns, 4 interceptions last year when he was playing. It's 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. Who knows? He might have messed around and had 17 touchdown passes and 6 interceptions last year. Would you have labeled him turnover prone then? Like, we got to give these guys a chance to learn and play and experience things, make mistakes, learn from those mistakes. That's how it happens in this league. That's how Josh Allen goes from turnover prone after his rookie season to growth in year 2 to, oh my God, this guy is an animal and one of the best quarterbacks in the league. You let guys learn. So I wouldn't consider Kyle Allen even turnover prone myself. I just would like to see him get more opportunities, but we will see. Richard R., thank you for the super chat. Really appreciate you, Richard, who writes, want to support you and the channel. How do I pick up some LTN merch? Thank you for the support, Richard, and glad that you asked. I need to continue to promote my merch more. I just stopped for whatever reason. Maybe because people weren't purchasing it but that's still, I learned this in the last life that I had, as a merchandiser. The one thing I learned from that job, and there weren't many takeaways from that job. It's a very brainless job. Not a lot of thinking required. But the one thing I did learn was that it's not your job to decide for the consumer. You just put the product out and you let the consumer decide what they want and what they don't want. And so by me not promoting it, I essentially made the decision for you. So that's an error on my part. I've got to be better. So I'm glad you brought that up, Richard, because I do need to do a better job of promoting the merch. Hell, I got some on right now. If you can see it, I got some merch on right now. So I need to do a better job of promoting the merch. Speaking of which, you can get the LTN merch by clicking on the link down in the description of this video and every single video that I do. It's over at the printchamps.com. The link, as I mentioned, down in the description of this video and every single video that I do. And it will take you straight to his page. And you can scroll through all of the merch. I've also got merch on my website, LouieTeeNetwork.net. But everything that we have available isn't on the website. I haven't updated it to reflect all the things that are available. So you'd be better served going over to theprintchamps.com. And really, I'm just the middleman. I'm a facilitator. If you click on one of the links on my website, it's just going to take you to their page anyway. So theprintchamps.com, It's down in the description, as I mentioned. If you just go to theprintchamps.com, at the top, you can find Louie T, and all of that merch will pop up. But if you just click the link down in the description of this video, it'll take you straight to my merch. You won't have to go through any other channels. It'll just take you straight to the merch, and then you can shop from there. So thank you, Richard, for bringing that up and supporting the Louie T Network. Irish, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, Irish. Greatly appreciate you. My man Irish writes, I think people are crowning Fitzpatrick starter prematurely. If there is a competition, I think Heinicke wins it. Dude is hungry. Keep up the good work. And that's something that I've continued to harp on, because my initial thoughts when he was signed was, oh, he's been signed to be the starter. I still believe that to be the case. But as I've said numerous times, and people have corrected me and said, you're acting like he's already been given the job. He hasn't been given the job. Now, I'm pretty sure they told him, you're going to get a chance to compete, and we like you a lot. And that's all he needed to hear. And he said this already. Unlike Andy Dalton, who stepped up to the mic today when he had his initial presser in Chicago and pretty much said, they told me I was gonna start. That's why I came here. Like, that's bullshit. But he's been a starter his entire career, so he expects to have that opportunity, other than if he goes somewhere like he did with Dallas, where he knows they got a guy. I'm coming here to back him up. Going to Chicago, he's like, ain't nobody here, so I should be the starter. Ryan Fitzpatrick has had to earn everything every step of the way in his career, starting with being a 7th-round pick and an afterthought out of Harvard, by the Rams back in like 2005 to now. He's had to scratch and claw for everything he's gotten. So he's not showing up here with the expectation of being given the job. He knows he's got to win it from some young, hungry guys. But I think he fully expects to be able to go out and win the job. And I think they feel the same way too. But you're right. Nothing is etched in stone. I'm not going to count out Heinicke nor Allen. I think a lot of people are bypassing Kyle Allen. Keep in mind, I think Ron Rivera likes Kyle Allen better than Heinicke. Okay, remember, Rivera traded to bring Allen here. And when asked at the end of the season, do you think you would still be in this position with any other quarterback? Without hesitation, he says, yeah, we would have been here with Kyle Allen. He could have done this. So I think Ron believes in Kyle Allen. So don't just skip over Allen and go straight to Heinicke. That's Scott Turner's guy. Okay? That's not Ron Rivera's guy. Ron Rivera's guy is Kyle Allen. So don't forget about him in this quarterback mix. If he's healthy, he's going to have a chance to compete as well. So, but you're right. Most people are bypassing both Allen and Heinicke and going straight to Fitzpatrick. I think that's a mistake. Although, as I've mentioned several times, the $10 million is more combined than Allen and Heinicke are going to earn in 2021. So the money suggests that Fitzpatrick's going to be your guy, but it's not like he's making $25 million. He's making $10 million. So we'll see what happens. Bottom line is, it's a competition. Everybody's going to have an opportunity. We'll see who wins. Hopefully, the best man wins. Thank you for the super chat, Irish. You saw what I did there, Kev? What did I tell you? When somebody says no disrespect, or they say, I don't mean any harm, or something like to that effect, and then a conjunction, but what then follows afterwards is going to be disrespect. Every single word of it. I be trying to drop these gem on y'all melons, man. I swear I do. Anyway, Armin1. Thank you for the super chat. Armin1. Greatly appreciate you. Armin writes, smiling like shit, hilarious. What was the point of holding on to Landon Collins? He says, smiling like shit, you hilarious. What was the point of holding on to Landon Collins? Because we can't just move on from him until the dollars make sense. So let me kind of lay it out for you. I don't know the specifics of his contract, but there's too much dead money that Washington would be on the hook for. It doesn't make any sense from an economics standpoint to let him go. You know, it's essentially, think of it this way. If you have a car and you're like, man, I'm just tired of looking at this car, but it's the only transportation you have. And you say, man, I'm just tired of looking at this car. It's an eyesore. It works. It works. But it's an eyesore. It's a gas guzzler. You know, you don't want to put any more money into it. You fix it up several times. You're tired of pouring money into it. But it works. It gets you from point A to point B, but you're sick of it. Are you going to sell the car or give it away and catch the bus? Or are you going to continue to drive that car until it's more feasible for you to get rid of it? So let's say that car that you just tired of looking at. Somebody says, hey, I'll take that car off your hands, but you got to give me $500 and you got to give me the car. Do you really want to get rid of the car that damn bad that you will pay somebody to take the car off your hands and then catch the bus? Or are you going to be like, nah. I'll keep driving this whip until I get into a position where I can sell the car, get money for it, and then use that money to buy me a new whip or put down the deposit or put down a down payment on the new car. That's essentially where we're at with Landon Collins. Is at this point, you would essentially be paying him to walk away. It just doesn't make any sense from an economics standpoint. There'd be dead cap. There wouldn't be no benefit to Washington. You'd be hurting yourself. Next year is the first year there's an exit ramp where you can get out and the dead cap is minimal and there are no strings attached. No guaranteed money to Landon Collins that you're still paying him. None of that stuff. So next year, if Landon Collins is injured this year again or he's not playing up to their standards, they can move on. If they think his money that he's making is too much, they can go to him and say, hey, restructure. If he says no, then he gets cut. So there'll be options next year. But as of right now, there are no options because they don't make any sense. You're stuck with him either way, so you might as well play him. Keep him on the roster and play him. Hope that makes sense. Got another super chat. This one is from Robert Gamble Jr. Thank you for the super chat, Robert Gamble Jr., who writes, what are your thoughts on Jabril Cox? Talked about Jabril Cox already. You want my breakdown of him, go check out the video that I did. And I've uploaded a breakdown of Jabril Cox. I can give you a quick synopsis, but if you really want how I feel about Jabril Cox, the video's up on the LouieTeeNetwork. Just go ahead and sort it out, or just go to the playlist of the Draft Prospects 101 series, and it's there. But Jabril Cox, to me, is going to be a Swiss Army knife, really a chess piece for somebody. He's a guy that he's got a specific role, if you ask me, in this league. I don't love him in the box. I don't think he's physical enough, but he's fast, and he's got a specific skill. You know, he's like Liam Nielsen, okay? He doesn't have much, but he's got a specific set of skills that he will be able to use to help a defense. In today's NFL, his specific set of skills are invaluable because he can play in the slot, and he can run with not just tight ends, he can run with legitimate slot receivers and take them away. So I like Jabril Cox from the standpoint of, hey, if you need a slot guy, Jabril Cox is your man as a weak side linebacker. But if you're looking for a dude to be physical, take on blockers, shed those blockers, make plays in the backfield consistently, I don't know if he's your man or not. The jury's still out for me on him in that capacity. But again, if you love JOK, he to me is a great value version of JOK. That's my thoughts on Jabril Cox. Without all of the aggressiveness that JOK brings to the table. Red Wings 01. Thank you for the super chat, Red Wings 01. Who writes, any LTs in FA that you think we should sign? I really like Alejandro Villanueva, Russell Okung, and Eric Fisher are out there too. Again, if they're going to acquire an offensive lineman, they're not going to do it via free agency. I can tell you this because they acquired 2 of them via free agency last year. One via signing as an unrestricted free agent, the other via trade with the Vegas Raiders. So, excuse me, they're not going to sign a tackle. And tackles don't come cheap normally. So if they're going to upgrade the tackle position, it's going to be via the draft. I could tell you this 100% certain on that. They're not signing a tackle. They're going to either draft a tackle or they're going to roll with the tackles that they have. And they got plenty of them. If you count Sadiq Charles as a tackle, that would make it 5 tackles on the roster right now as we sit here on March the 18th. They're not signing another tackle. You know, they're going to either draft one or they're going to roll with the guys they got. I assure you of that. Jordan C, thank you for the super chat. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, Jordan C. Greatly appreciate you. Jordan C writes, A+ in the draft. I'm unbuckling seatbelt, going up through the sunroof and yelling, "The champs are here! The champs are here!" If we sweep the boys, I'm mooning their bus as it drives away. You in, Lou? Each cheek says the champs are here. Oh, man, that is priceless. It's crazy because, pause, but I just had the visual of that. You know, I don't know how you look. I just inserted myself in as you, and I just envisioned myself going through the sunroof and having each ass cheek say the champs are here as I'm mooning the bus. I wouldn't do that. That's not my style, but I wouldn't stop you from doing it. Okay, by all means, have at it, have fun, enjoy yourself, be safe. But I definitely, I'm kind of feeling like how you're feeling right now. First of all, I never take the safety belt off. I've been scarred by this organization, and I get it. It's Ron. It's a new day. He's changing things. Yada yada yada, etc., etc., etc. But I've learned the hard way with this organization, never, under any circumstances, do you take off the safety belt, okay? Always make sure you're protected because at any moment, it could wrap around a tree and you just don't want to be caught with your pants down. Did you see what I just did there? I don't know if you did or not. Anyway, if they kill it in the draft, first of all, I'd be so thrilled because we have to separate what was done in 2017 and 18 and 19 and 20 away. We have to strip that away and focus on 2021 and moving forward because it's a whole new brass. So no longer can we talk about what was done in the 2020 or the 2019 or the 2018 draft because those guys are no longer here. The last guy that had any ties to any of those drafts was Kyle Smith. He's no longer here. So now we're looking forward. And that's what Rivera wanted. He didn't want you talking about previous drafts or looking back in the rearview mirror. He wants you looking forward through the windshield. So that's what we're going to do. And if they kill it in the 2021 draft, and again, we won't know how well they actually did. You know, we can get a sense like last year's draft. Oh, wow. You get Chase Young, and the jury's still out on Sadiq Charles and AGG and those guys. But, you know, you say you got Chase Young, and you got Antonio Gibson, and you got Cameron Curl. And for a lot of you, that's enough. We killed it. So we're going to find out what 2021 holds in store for us. But I'm keeping my seatbelt on. I told you I'm keeping my safety belt on at all times. But hey, feel free. You got my support. All right. Thank you for the super chat, Jordan C. That was a good one. HOF Media 9. Okay, Hall of Fame Media 9. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, you think taking Caleb Farley at 19, then taking Jabril Cox in the second round would be cool? Moving Fuller to the slot if Owusu is gone by 19. First of all, Caleb Farley isn't going to be around at 19. I don't think. Again, we do this every year. We talk about how this guy isn't going to be here and that guy's not going to be here and there's no way this guy's going to be available at XYZ pick. And then we get to the draft and that guy's available that we said wasn't going to be there. Again, we're going to see 4 quarterbacks go in the top 10. I firmly believe that. I'm not moving off of that spot. I think you're going to see a linebacker go. I think you're going to see a tight end go in the top 10. And I think you may see 1 or 2 offensive linemen go. Okay, that's going to pretty much make up your top 10. I think there's a corner in there too. And I think that corner may be Caleb Farley. If it's not Farley, it's Surtain. But after that, it's one of the two. Both of those guys are gone, I think, before 19. So, but to answer your hypothetical, would I be cool with doing that? Sure. Why not? Absolutely, I would be. Because then it would give you flexibility with what you do at the cornerback position. Now, all of a sudden, instead of Kendall Fuller, you might have killed 2 birds with 1 stone. We keep talking about free safety. Well, maybe Kendall Fuller's your new free safety if you do that. Now, instead of you having to draft a free safety, you now move Kendall Fuller to safety. Now you got 2 corners, you got your safety, and you just fixed 2 positions with 1 pick. I'd be fine with that. And then Jabril Cox in the second round. I don't love him in the box, but if you told me, hey, man, I'm not drafting him for that. I'm just drafting him for when teams decide they want to go 11 personnel or they want to spread us out. They want to go with 4 wide receivers on the field, and we want to keep a linebacker just in case they want to spread us out and try to run it. Yeah, I'd be cool with Jabril Cox. No problems with him in the second round either. I'd had no problems with that scenario you posed of taking Caleb Farley at 19 and then doubling back and getting Jabril Cox at number 51. Sonny Rawson, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My man Sonny Rawson writes, am I crazy for wanting to roll with Shays as our starting free safety? Thought he played his ass off for us. Has to be middle linebacker for me. Rivera wants his next Kuechly. No, you're not crazy for that. I told you I loved Shays last year. He was one of my favorite players last season before he got injured. I told you that the level of physicality and recklessness that he played with, it was controlled aggression that he played with was breathtaking, and it was a breath of fresh air all at the same time. And I want more. Problem is, Shays looks like a corner, plays like a safety, and that usually doesn't end well in this league. When you play as hard as he does and you are throwing your body around with reckless abandon and you're only, a $197, bad things usually happen. Injuries usually occur. And so I think Shays may benefit from getting injured and having to rehab. Maybe he bulks up, comes back a bigger, stronger, more physical safety, but doesn't lose any of the athleticism nor the recklessness. And maybe he's able to stand up for 16 games. But, I look at Shays and he looks like a corner. And I think he was a former corner in college that they converted to safety. And he looks like it. And I don't know if that level of play and that style of play is going to allow him to last. So I get it. I told you I wanted Shays to start. There was some disrespect for Shays on Twitter from a viewer out there when we signed William Jackson a couple of days ago. And, William Jackson tweeted out a picture of himself in a Washington uniform with the number 22. And I tweeted, my response to that was, hey, Shays may have something to say about that or not. I don't know. We'll see. And somebody, tweeted at me and said, hey, F Shays, essentially. And I'm like, hey, ho, wait a minute now. Let's not do that. Okay? Let's not get disrespectful here. Okay? That's my guy. It'd be easy. Okay? Relax. So, I have an affinity for Shays. So, I'm with you. I would love him to start. But the problem is you could get 4 games into the season and Shays could dislocate his shoulder, or Shays could, crack his collarbone because of the way he plays, and his season is over. Or he could tear his pectoral muscle, and it's over. And now you're like, damn, we back where we was at last year. That's the fear. If you don't do anything, is okay. Now we got to go to Jeremy Reeves, but you're one injury away from, Troy Apke having to be in the game. That shit is scary. Trust me. I don't have to tell you that. So, I think Rivera does want a middle linebacker, and they're gonna solve that this year in the draft. I firmly believe that. I really do. Thank you for that super chat, Sonny Rawson. Got another one here from Hall of Fame Media 9. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, Hall of Fame Media 9, who writes, I don't think we should take Xavier Collins at 19. He's great, but that's a reach. Feel like he's a late first rounder, early second rounder. I feel the same way. I said he's, to me, back end of the first round. I think 19's a little aggressive, but I've always been a proponent of this, and you know what I'm about to say if you've been following me long enough. If you don't, you're going to hear this from me quite often because I say it all the time. Get your guy when you feel the need to get your guy. And so if you say 19 isn't too early for him, it's right on time, and they snatch him up at 19, I'm not, again, we only do that in the moment, 4 years from now, when Xavier Collins is balling, we're not going to look back and say, oh my God, I still can't believe they took him at 19. Nobody's going to be talking about that shit. We made all this big stink about Brandon Sheriff. Oh my God, they took a guard at 5. We made all of this hoopla about that shit. Who talks about when Brandon Sheriff was taken anymore? Nobody. We only talk about that in the moment because you want the best bang for your buck. But if he performs at a high level, who cares? The only time that stuff is relevant is if a guy overperforms or underperforms. If you spend the 19th pick on a guy and he stinks and he turns into Josh Doxson, right? That's when you start saying, shit, we spent the 21st pick in the draft on Josh stinking ass Doxson. That's when that stuff starts to resonate. Or in the case of a Cameron Curl on the flip side, when you spend, the 200th and, 4th pick in the draft on a guy and it turns out to be a gem, you say, shit, we got a steal in the 7th round. It could go both ways. So, we can talk about him being a reach per se in the moment. If they love him, they think 19 is good, that's fine with me. Personally, I've got him as a back end of the first round, early portion of the second round type of prospect myself as well. So I tend to agree with your assessment. J Mart, thank you for the super chat. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, J Mart. Greatly appreciate you, my man. J Mart writes, agree with you on Mac. I feel like we could have got Tyrod. I didn't want Tyrod. So let me be clear. I'm not co-signing Tyrod Taylor here. I didn't want Jacoby Brissett. I didn't want Tyrod Taylor. I didn't want Cam. I didn't want Andy Dalton. I didn't want any of those dudes. Okay. I didn't want Ryan Fitzpatrick, but we got him. So he's here. And so we're going to ride with that. But if they decide to go with Mac Jones, I'm on board. Got no problems with it. Got a super chat here from Big Al. Thank you for the super chat, Big Al. My man Big Al writes, what do you think about Jordan Smith out of UAB to replace Kerrigan? He reminds me of Montez Sweat, 6'7", runs 4.5 40, and is 9th best ranked edge rusher. Also, the cornerback out of UGA, Eric Stokes, he's a lockdown, ran a 4.25 40. I can't tell you about either one of these guys. I'm actually about to watch Jordan Smith. I'm doing my rounds on the edge rushers. I've gotten through like 12 of them. Haven't gotten to Jordan Smith, but I think he's 14th on my list. Not saying that's where I have him ranked. That's just where he is on the list of guys that I have to watch. There's so many edge rushers in this draft. I think I've got a list of like 21 guys, and there still may be 4 or 5 more guys that get drafted that I may not even have a chance to take a look at before I move on to my next position. So Jordan Smith is in there. We're gonna do a film. I'm gonna do my list of edge rushers. He may be on it. He may not be on it. But I will break him down more likely than not, regardless of whether he is on my list of my top 7 or not. So can't tell you about him yet, but I will probably be able to tell you about him next week. So as far as the cornerback, Eric Stokes, I haven't watched him yet. I know he ran a really fast time a week ago at the little pro day that they did. So he would definitely be on the list of corners that I'm going to watch. I think the next position after edge rusher is going to be wide receiver. And then I think I'm going to go to the cornerback position. So I think that's the way I'm going to kind of maneuver around the next couple of weeks. And so we'll see what happens. But Jordan Smith is interesting. I know he's starting to garner a lot of attention from people. And I know he's very athletic. I think he's got a really slender frame, though. So that's something to keep in mind. But again, I haven't watched him yet. So I will give you my assessment of him once I have watched him. Same with Eric Stokes. Thank you for the super chat, Big Al. Let's see. Got another super chat. This one is from Taint Tostada. Thank you for the super chat, Taint Tostada, who writes, I'm sticking with the best offensive tackle and quarterback in the first and second. Yeah, I mean, it's still a realistic possibility as well. Not just because they signed Ryan Fitzpatrick to a one-year deal that they're out of the quarterback market. They could be very much in that market, and they may think that 51 overall in the second round, or maybe even packaging up 51 with an additional third that they have to move up to get a guy is the answer to their quarterback issues. So, you know, there are options for Washington if they so choose to explore them. Tackle could be the answer at 19. Tackle could be the answer at 51. Tackle could be the answer like it was last year in the third round. We don't know. Or was it the fourth round? I think Sadiq Charles was the fourth round pick. We had 2 fourth rounders last year, I believe. And they spent one on Sadiq, the first one on Sadiq, and the second on Antonio Gandy Golden. I believe that was the case. He might have been a 5th round. I believe it was 2 fourth rounders, but I digress. So, yeah. We'll see. I mean, there have been so many people mocking a tackle to Washington at 19. It's not sexy, but in this league, you have to spend resources on your offensive line. And we've done that. Not necessarily the highest of resources. You know, Morgan Moses, a 3rd round pick. Brandon Sheriff, 1st round pick. Chase Roulier, a 5th rounder, if I'm not mistaken. He might have been a 6th rounder out of Wyoming. Sadiq Charles, if he wins the guard job, if he's even considered as a guard or he's considered a tackle, he's a 3rd round pick. And then, you know, we'll see what they do at left tackle, which is arguably the most important position on the offensive line. And we haven't invested any resources there since Trent Williams. So, you know, I wouldn't have a problem with it. Got another super chat. This one is from Protect Sports Network. Thank you for the super chat, Protect Sports Network. My man Tones writes, why is Fitzmagic on this team? He's not good. LOL. People would beg to differ. And depending on who you talk to, I had my man shucks. Who was it yesterday? It was my man King of the North. That's who it was. I drew a blank for a second. It was my man King of the North yesterday. And he brought up the Kevin Sheehan Show podcast. And, I told him I'm way behind, so I wish I could catch up because, I would love to have these conversations with you guys in real time. But I'm behind, and I don't like skipping podcasts. I go in order. So I'm way behind. I haven't been, listening to it. Normally I listen to it when I go to the gym. I've been so busy I haven't been able to go to the gym. I've only been able to work out at home. So hopefully I'll be able to get into the gym and, get back into a normal routine and start listening to those podcasts and knocking them down. But he brought up the fact that Cooley was on Kevin's show, and Cooley was talking about how, Fitzpatrick is a top 15 quarterback in this league. And, they were elated that he was here in Washington, and they feel like it's a massive upgrade, which I don't disagree with, especially if you're comparing it with what we put on the field last year. What we put on the field at times last year was laughable, especially when you're talking about Dwayne. It was a joke. So, and some of those games with Alex as well, when he wasn't right, it was comical. So, yeah, he's an upgrade, but depending on who you talk to, you'd think that Ryan Fitzpatrick won 2 Super Bowls, and we're lucky to have him. And guy's never played in a postseason game in his career, but he's getting better. That's what he said. In year 16, he played his best football. I'm not denying that. I don't disagree with that assessment, but we're going to see. I'm not going to just discount him. I've done enough of that already. I needed to do that so that you guys knew where I stood. Okay? Right or wrong, you know where I am on the fence. You know what side I'm on. So if he plays well and you want to point the finger at me, I'm here. And you know I'm not going to run from it. And I'll acknowledge, I didn't want him. But he's kicking ass and he's here, and I'm happy he's here if he's kicking ass. If he's not kicking ass, I'm not going to wag my finger in your face. I'm just going to say, I saw this coming, and I'm going to leave it at that. But I hope that he plays well for us. But for me to say he's not good, I think it's too easy for someone to just say that. I don't think that's a fair assessment of what he is. I think he is a quality NFL quarterback. I don't think he's exceptional. But we didn't even have average at times last season. He's better than average, is Ryan Fitzpatrick. When he's at his best, he's not elite, but he's in the tier underneath that. When he's at his best. When he's in that zone and he can get there from time to time, where everything, it's like nobody else is on the field but his guys. And he's zinging them. Go watch that Jacksonville first half against the Jaguars on a Thursday night, early in the season, like week 3. When he gets into that kind of zone, look, that Raiders game is another game. Go turn that game on week 16 versus the Raiders on a Saturday night. Like, when he gets into those type of zones, there aren't many in the game better. But that's not who you get every week. And that's the difference between elite quarterbacks, that next tier down, and then the slightly above average quarterbacks, and then the average. As you get further and further down the list, consistency falls off more and more. It starts to taper more and more. And that's been his bugaboo in his career, is consistency. So I hear you. I'm not mad at you for feeling that way. I didn't want him here either. But he's here. I'm a ride. Thank you for the super chat. Protect Sports Network. Got another super chat here from John Livingston. Thank you for the super chat, John Livingston. My man JL Smooth writes, Lou, we all know what's going to happen. Heineke or Allen starts. They'll struggle in a game. Fitz will come in and magic will occur. Then you'll proceed to go 8-8. LOL. Hopefully I'm wrong. No, you're probably not wrong. Either that will happen or they'll get hurt and he'll come in. One of those two scenarios happens. That, one of those guys gets the nod. They come out of the gates. They struggle a little bit. They turn it over to Fitz. He comes in, and we know what he does when he comes in relief. He starts slinging. I'm talking about firing off all kinds of shots. Bow, 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 bow. And next thing you know, you were down 16, and you end up winning the game by 4. You're like, man, that Fitzpatrick, man, he's something else. And that's how you get sucked in. Or as a wise man once told me, like a tractor beam, suck me right in. That's what Fitzpatrick does a lot of times. So, and you're right. And it won't be 8-8. It'll be 8-9, or it'll be 7-10. So they're gonna vote on that next week, and it's probably gonna be unanimous. So we're gonna have 17 games next season. So more likely than not, you're right. You've seen the movie before. You saw it for 4 years in Buffalo, so you know all too well how that movie usually ends. All right. Let's see. Got a super chat here from Jensen Richards. Thank you for the super chat, Jensen Richards. Writes, hashtag sign Kyle Fuller and Trey Boston, no fly zone. So they're not signing Kyle Fuller, just so you know. I don't know where he's going to end up, but I can assure you it won't be here. It was funny. I was talking to somebody on Twitter. They said, hey, we should sign Kyle Fuller. He'll provide good depth for us. We need depth at corner. And I'm looking at this tweet and I'm like, did he just refer to Kyle Fuller as depth? No. Kyle Fuller isn't depth at cornerback. Okay? Danny Johnson is depth at cornerback. Okay? Let's get that straight right now. All right? LaMarcus Joyner is depth at corner. Kyle Fuller isn't depth. He's a starter. Okay? He's not backing up anybody. You're talking about a 2-time Pro Bowl corner that at times plays like an all-pro. He's not coming on your team to be depth. He's starting, which requires starting money. He's not taking a 1-year, $7.5 million deal. He's Kyle Fuller. He's looking to get a 3-year, $42 million deal with $26 million of it guaranteed. He's looking to get a 2-year, $36 million deal with 24 of it guaranteed. That's what he's looking to get. Will he get it? I don't know. But I can tell you it won't be here. So, that ain't happening. And I just want to know, what is the fascination with Trey Boston? Can somebody explain this to me? I'm lost. Help me. Help me. Help me. I need to know. I'm asking for a friend. Because for years, Washington fans have been fixated on Trey Boston as if he's done a damn thing in this league. So help me understand why we need Trey Boston on our team so badly. The fact that this man's been on the Panthers roster twice, he's been on a couple of other rosters, and nobody seems to love him. Help me. For me, I guess he is your guys' version of what Carlos Hyde is for me. Nobody seems to love Carlos Hyde. I do. Want somebody to love Carlos Hyde and give him a home that he can love, cherish, and nourish. You guys seem to have this unhealthy lust for Trey Boston. What the hell is the deal? Help me. Trey Boston is a marginal safety in this league. What is the fascination? Please, somebody, hit me up and explain to me what I'm missing. Thank you. Thank you for the super chat, Jensen Richards. Got one here from Derek JB. Thank you, Derek JB, for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Derek writes, do you think Ryan Fitz was born a late bloomer? I mean, how late we talking, man? Like, the man has been at it for 16, now 17 years. I mean, it's one thing when, you didn't get a chance to play early in your career and you had to sit for the first 4 years. And, when you finally got your chance, you struggled a bit and it took a while, but now you got it. Look, everybody matures at a different rate. I talk about that all the time. But at some point, you got to be like, all right, man, this is who you are, right? Like, this is what you are. Like, we're not, making this stuff up, This is who he is. It's amazing to me how quick we are to make, definitive decisions on quarterbacks and players after a year or two of being in the league. But here is Ryan Fitzpatrick, and he's going into year 17, and we want to make ourselves believe that in year 17, this is the year that he's going to put it all together. It could happen. It's like the Burger King commercial. Hey, it can happen. But what history is saying to us is no, it's not going to happen. But that's the beauty of sports. And as a wise man once told me, that's why they play the game. So we're going to see what happens. Was he born a late bloomer? No. He's not a late bloomer. Some guys just take longer. And first of all, this guy is a brilliant mind. So it's not for a lack of him understanding. Okay? He just wants to do what he wants to do. He sees a window. He thinks he can get it in there. He's going to throw it. After he lets it go, he might say, shit, Ryan, you shouldn't have done that. But he can't help himself. He's a smart guy. He knows better. And he said, I've learned when to pull the reins back a bit. Took me a while to figure that out. That's good self-awareness. He mentioned 2016 as one of the rough points of his career. Good self-awareness. That was the year, if you recall, I always bring this year up, 2015. He goes 10-6 with the Jets. They don't make the playoffs. The Jets, he had a contract dispute with the Jets the following offseason, if you recall, and he wanted to be paid. The Jets didn't want to pay him, so he was holding out. It was ugly, but it got done. They gave him a 1-year deal. He shows up. He stinks in 2016. They stink, and Todd Bowles gets fired. It's unfortunate, or I think Bowles might have gotten 1 more year, but then he got fired. Whatever the case may be. It was unfortunate because he thought he might have found a home, and he didn't play well. That's who he's been. Good Ryan, bad Ryan. But he claims he's figured it out. We'll see. We will see. We will see. Kevin the PRF. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My man Kevin the PRF writes, I like Jordan C's idea, but I'm keeping it safe. Currently skimming the internet for a COVID A55 mask that says the champs are here. I like you, and I'm gonna try to keep it safe. Something, maybe a shirt or something that says the champs are here. I don't know if I necessarily subscribe to the notion of my ass cheeks having that read. But hey, to each its own. I told you, I don't like to kill another man's dream. I'm here for support, man. Moral support. So I like the concept, as you mentioned, but I think I'm gonna be a little bit more conservative with my approach. Okay. A mask might be too small. They may not be able to see it. I need something a little bit bigger. Maybe a custom made sign, maybe a shirt. I don't know. But yeah. Thank you for that super chat, Kevin, the PRF. Got another super chat. This next one is from Contraband Truth. Thank you for the super chat, Contraband Truth, who writes, bruh, whatever happened to the dude Jordan Brailford? He did not make the football team last year. They tried to sneak him onto the practice squad, and he was claimed off of waivers by the Minnesota Vikings. So he's on the Minnesota Vikings roster right now. So that's what happened. And look, you're not the only one. I thought Jordan Brailford was on the roster, and one of you guys out there, one of the viewers was like, yo, he gone, man. I was like, for real? When that happened? And so I had to look it up, and sure enough, Jordan Brailford got claimed off of waivers, and he is gone. So he's in Minnesota with the Vikings. Thank you for that super chat, Contraband Truth. Metaphor. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, Metaphor, who writes, Shay's about to drive by Jackson when camp opens up with a 2 tattooed on each cheek. Hey, a wise man once told me everybody's got a price. So Jackson's a really wealthy man these days. Pretty sure Shays is like, I ain't never seen a contract like that before. Be pretty nice to make me a couple of extra bucks on the side. I mean, what's the difference between 22 and 23? How much does that number matter to you? Carson Wentz showed up in Indianapolis and he called up Michael Pittman Jr. was like, hey, what up, Pitt? What's good with you, bro? He was like, hey, what's up, man? And I'm going to just let you know before we start this conversation, I'm not giving you 11, but hey, everything's been real. How's everything with you? So for some dudes, money's not an object. I'm good, man. I don't want your money. I want this number. You know, for guys like Dwayne Haskins, who has the number 7 chain and swears by the number 7, they want it. He goes to Pittsburgh. He knows he ain't getting it there. So for Shays, 22 might be a number that he's had since rec league. And he's like, nah, I can't come up off this. It means something to me. This number does something for me. I'm more confident with it on my chest and on my back. For other dudes, they're like, hey, man, everything's got a price. I don't mind being 23 next season. Ronald Darby's no longer here. I don't mind being 23. What you got? What you got on my 40, homie? So we'll see what happens. I surmise that William Jackson III will end up with 22 when it's all said and done. That's my guess. I could be wrong. Martin Matthews. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you as always. Double M. My man Martin Matthews writes, hey, Louie, I'm not happy about Fitzpatrick, but this is not saying much. He's better than what we have had, and he gives us the second best QB in the NFC East. I am a Heineke fan. So let's assess that for a second. Yeah, that didn't take very long. It's Dak Prescott, and then it was the rest of the division. Daniel Jones still has yet to prove himself in this league, and the Eagles have no idea what they're doing at the quarterback position right now. So, yeah. He's the second best quarterback in the division. How about that? We go from pretty much dead last to second best in one fell swoop with a 38-year-old quarterback. Who knew? But you're right. Better than what we have been exposed to. Better than Case Keenum, Alex Smith in his compromised state. You know, Kyle Allen, you know, to a lesser degree, even though I would have loved to have seen Kyle play out the string and see how the rest of the season would have gone with him under center. Yeah. Dwayne Haskins, absolutely. He's better than all the stuff we've trotted out on the field. So, Colt McCoy, yeah, I concur. He says, I'm a Heineke fan. There are a lot of those out there these days. You know, we'll see if old Taylor can rev it up and win this competition or not. Stephen Grinkley, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Stephen Grinkley writes, it seems that Ron and Scott Turner prefer high IQ QBs that push the ball. Which QB in the draft could be on their radar that would fit this mold? You're describing a guy like Mac Jones. From all reports. Again, I don't know these quarterbacks personally. I don't know what their IQ level is, and I can just tell you what guys are doing on the football field, how they're processing things, the decision making, their ability to go through their reads quickly and distribute the football and get it where it needs to go, the ability to push the football down the field. We saw Mac Jones do that at a high level. We saw Kyle Trask do that to a lesser degree. I saw a little bit of the Stanford quarterback, Davis. Let me find his name real quick. He got 2 damn last names. I don't know why I can't remember his name. But Davis Mills. So, yeah, I mean, when it's all said and done, you see quarterbacks that kind of fit into that mold. But again, do they fit your scheme? Do you feel good about these guys? Can they be the future of your franchise? These are all questions that you have. And I can tell you this, Fitzpatrick can move even at 38. He's still mobile. Taylor Heineke can move. Kyle Allen can move. Every single quarterback on the roster currently has wheels. Mac Jones doesn't own a pair of wheels. He's stationary, okay? I don't know if that factors into their decision-making, but I listened to Ron, and he said, look, I'm going to just tell you up front, I don't give a damn about mobility. If you can get it done from the pocket, that's all I care about. At a high level, I'm good with that. So that told me that was his way of saying, hey, Mac Jones is definitely in play. Okay, I hear you loud and clear. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. John Livingston, thank you for the super chat. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, John Livingston. Greatly appreciate you, my man. JL Smooth writes, after your stream last night, I found another Washington football stream, and they were absolutely irate y'all signed Fitz over RG3. We had words, LOL. I couldn't imagine fans being irate about Robert Griffin III at this point. If you're still irate about that, I got nothing to say to you. I got no words for you. You are better than me because you're not even a Washington fan, and you took the time out of your busy schedule to have words with this gentleman or gentlemen about Bob. And for me, Bobby's not a discussion at this point. Honestly, Bobby's lucky if he gets another gig because he stunk it up in Baltimore. That last game, and people make excuses. He got hurt. Half of their team was out with COVID. I don't give a shit. He stinks. Okay? Or as a wise man said to somebody else, he stinks, bro. So, I would just tell you moving forward in a situation like that, save your breath. Save your breath. Got another super chat. This one is from Red Wings 01. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Red Wings 01, who writes, would you take Sam Ehlinger over Mac Jones and Kyle Trask? I think his ability to grow as a quarterback and athleticism suits this offense much better. I would not take Ehlinger over Mac Jones. I would consider taking him over Kyle Trask, however. I like Sam Ehlinger more than most, though. You know, if you watch other people break down quarterbacks, you look at other people's list, Ehlinger is a lot further down the list for them than he is for me. If you watch my quarterback breakdown in my list of quarterbacks, Ehlinger checked in at number 7. That's a lot higher than most have him on their rankings for quarterbacks. He's probably in the 9 to 12 range for most people. Mac Jones and Kyle Trask are both ahead of him on my list, but I wouldn't take him over Mac Jones if I felt like I could protect Mac Jones and I had the weapons that he could get the football to. I would, if I could protect Mac Jones, I'd take him. You know, the NFL is getting away from pocket passers. You know what my preference is. My preference is the guy that can scramble, that can move, that can extend. I don't think Mac Jones is that guy. But if you can manipulate the pocket, if you can buy just an extra fraction of a second to get the ball where it needs to go within the confines of the pocket, I can live with that. You know, Phillip Rivers, Tom Brady, Drew Brees, et cetera, have made a living doing that for years, not being able to run any damn where. So it can be done. I think Mac Jones has enough of separation with accuracy and decision making and deep ball accuracy that I'd be willing to take him before I took Sam Ehlinger. Kyle Trask, not so much. I think the gap is a lot closer between Ehlinger and Trask, and thus the athleticism for me would be the deal breaker. I'd be able to elevate him, in my mind at least. I'd be able to make sense of it and take him over Kyle Trask, but I actually like Kyle Trask too. I do. So I like Sam Ehlinger, you know that, more so than most, but I wouldn't take him over Mac Jones, but I would take him over Kyle Trask. I could convince myself of doing that. Let's see. Martin Matthews, my man Double M, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My man Double M. First of all, double up, thank you for doubling up. Double M. My man Mark Matthews writes, hey, Louie, did you know that Trey Boston has a medical waiver? He is allergic to tackling. LOL. A safety in the draft would be the best move. No, I was not aware of that medical waiver. I'm not surprised. But at the end of the day, I think safety in the draft would be the best move too. It'll be the cheaper option. Again, I don't want to talk about what happened last year because the guy that was probably most responsible for the draft last year is no longer here. But we found a gem in the draft at safety last year. Why can't we do it again? Not saying, just saying. Thank you for that super chat, Double M. Washington football fan WGIL. Thank you for the super chat. Who writes, Lou, I'm dying. As if he's Trey Boston done a damned thing. I've been saying this for 2 weeks. I don't understand this fixation with Trey Boston. And, you know, it's not one or two fans. It's a bunch of them. And I don't know where this is coming from. Now, the likelihood that he ends up here is significantly increased because Ron Rivera is here. And Ron Rivera, I think, went back for seconds on Trey Boston, if I'm not mistaken. So there's a possibility, but who in their right minds is clamoring for Trey Boston? Why? Again, maybe I missed something. I only watch every game. That's it. I don't claim to be anything other than a professional football watcher. That's all I've ever claimed to be. Okay? So I may have missed Trey Boston being an absolute beast of a safety. I may have missed it. May have the other 31 teams not named Carolina around the league, because they seem to be the one keep coming back to the well. But I don't know. Maybe I missed something. You know, maybe it's just me, and maybe Trey Boston is worth going out and acquiring. But my gosh, you would have thought Trey Boston has been an all-pro in this league, and he's just sitting there dangling in front of us, and we had a chance to scoop him up. I don't understand. Help me. DMV Pride 10. Thank you for that super chat, Washington football fan WGIL. DMV Pride 10, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. DMV Pride 10 writes, get ready for an epic QB battle. Taylor and Allen know the system already, so I wouldn't hand Fitz the starting job so easily as most seem to be doing. Yes, that's the easy thing to do. The money suggests that he's the guy that they want to start. So you have to get past the money in order to understand, and the excitement. There's a lot of that bubbling right now on the surface. So you got to get past the money. You got to get past the excitement level that everybody is conjuring up for this move. And then you get to the actual reality of the situation, which is, if you listen to Ryan Fitzpatrick, and I listened to both interviews, the press conference he did with the media, and then his one-on-one interview with Julie Donaldson. If you listen to that, he said, I haven't been in a number system, which we all know that's what the Air Coryell system is. Scott Turner's system is a numbers-based system. The verbiage, it's easier. You're not spitting out like Jay Gruden's, play calls. You're not spitting out a whole paragraph in the huddle to get to the line of scrimmage, but it is numbers-based. He hasn't done that since, he said, 2005. Or 6. He's like my first or second year in the league. So it's been ages since he's done this. So it's going to be a bit of a transitional period for him. Again, he's a smart guy. He went to Harvard. He'll figure it out. Seen one system, seen them all. He'll figure it out. But that's something that you do have to take into consideration. These guys know the system. They don't have to spend this offseason learning verbiage or learning where is the number 2 going to be on this play. What does my backside read look? They don't have to do any of that. They can go out in the yard and practice these plays and know exactly where everybody's supposed to be and in the timing of the rhythm of how they're supposed to get the ball to these guys against what looks. So they have an upper hand. Again, in a normal situation, you would assume that the upper hand would be a little bit bigger. But the margin of advantage that they have shrinks because of a guy that's been in the league damn near 2 decades and been in countless offenses and is a smart guy to begin with. I think it shrinks exponentially. I remember when Alex Smith got here, and I know it's not an apples to apples comparison, but when Alex Smith got here, when Scott Turner got here and Alex Smith had to learn the playbook, and everybody was like, well, first of all, we didn't think Alex was going to play, but when he had to play, when we got to camp, if it was a real competition and Ron kept talking competition, it was like, well, Alex still had to learn the playbook, and then Alex learned that shit like that. And he knew more about the damn playbook than Dwayne did. And Dwayne had all off season, didn't have to worry about rehabbing and none of that shit. And Alex was light years ahead of him. And again, it's not an apples to apples comparison because Dwayne wasn't in the system for a whole year, 2-3 years prior. But what I'm saying is veterans, they catch on faster. Kyle Allen was here already. He knew the system. And Alex probably still was close to him in terms of knowledge of what to do. So I don't know if that whole angle of, they know the system is really going to give them a massive leg up or not because of who Ryan Fitzpatrick is. Taint Tostada, thank you for the super chat and doubling up. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, Taint Tostada. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, Ted DiBiase, the $1 million man. You're a smart man, Taint Tostada. You know something out there. He was one of the wise men I've been quoting tonight. One of the various. So everybody's got a price, man. Just what's yours? Everybody's got a price for the $1 million man. Money. Don't get me going down memory lane because you know I'll do it. Anyway, I digress. J.R. Hicksenball, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. J.R. writes, wannabe Conor McGregor will get us to wild card weekend Bank on it. I got my healthy paycheck on it. I wouldn't do that if I were you, JR. I wouldn't do that, man. But we'll see what happens. Don't put your paycheck on this, please. Please don't do that. I beg you. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't find yourself more emotionally invested than you need to be. You're already emotionally invested into this team as is. Please don't put money on the line and force yourself to be even more invested than you have to be already. Thank you for that super chat, J.R. Hicksonbaugh. Superstar J. Thank you for the super chat, Superstar J, who writes, do you think Ron believes in Moss? That's why we're letting all these tight ends, these good tight ends, pass by without signing one. Also, you think we sign another wide receiver like Fuller? No, I don't think we're signing any more wide receivers. I think that opportunity has come and gone. There may be a couple more names out there that I've mentioned to you guys in the past that won't cost you a ton of money that they may be interested in, but I know this is going to sound crazy, but we're loaded at receiver. Not loaded in the sense of talent per se. We just got a bunch of bodies already. Like, there's probably right now 10 guys already at the receiver position. I don't think they're looking to add any more, you know. So if they add another guy in the draft, that's one thing, but I don't think they're looking to add any more veterans at the receiver position. Got plenty of guys on the roster. I think Curtis Samuel is the one piece they're going to add via free agency. Now, you know, the draft is another thing. I wouldn't be shocked if they added a receiver via the draft, but as far as, you know, the receiver position is concerned in free agency, I think they're done. And as far as the tight end position is concerned, I keep forgetting about Thaddeus Moss. I brought him up, I think, a week ago, maybe 2 shows ago. I think that we are discounting Thaddeus Moss. I right now view him as TE3. You know, they went through the Tamarick Hemingways and the Marcus Balls of the world last year. I think there's a spot on the roster for one of those guys. I don't think they want 2 of those guys on the roster like they had it last year. Okay? I don't think they want 2 of those guys on the roster. Just one of those types of players. You want... and so they had Sprinkle. So I take that back. It was one of those guys on the roster last year, and they had Sprink. We got nothing out of Sprink last year. As a receiver... I thought he was okay at best as a blocker. They want to upgrade that tight end 2 position. I don't necessarily know if Thaddeus Moss is tight end 2 worthy. But I think you could fill the Marcus Ball, Tamarick Hemingway tight end 3 role. Why not? So I think that sort of gave them the ability to say, nah, we good on tight end because we're going to draft one. We have a few in mind, like a Pat Fryermuth or a Brevin Jordan. Like, they've got maybe some guys in mind that they really like, that they say, we're going to come away with a guy. In the second round at 51, we got our eye on 4 guys, and all 4 of them, or at least one of the 4 will be there, and we'll take them. So they may have said, we got one, TE1 figured out, and we got TE3 figured out. We just need TE2, and we're going to get that in the draft. I could be wrong, but that's the way I view it. Like, I keep forgetting about Thad Moss. I'm not going to lie to you. But they held on to him for a reason. They could have just cut him, injury settlement, moved on, washed their hands clean. They held on to him. Why? Because they think that this guy may have something. So, he might be a part of the future, the short-term future, that is. We'll see. Derek JB, thank you for the super chat. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, Derek JB. Greatly appreciate you, who writes, damn, Louie, you've been around a lot of old men, old soul like myself. Wonder if you think Fitz a curse to starting quarterback. Starting QBs always find themselves getting injured. Then he comes in. Sorry for text error. You're good. I know what you were trying to say. First of all, I am an old soul. I am told that a lot. My fiance makes fun of me all the time. She says, you're an old ass man, because I listen to a lot of old music. That's my preference. That's just how I was raised. We had an old 1992 Honda Accord, and the passenger side door didn't open, and we didn't get FM stations growing up in the car, so we had to listen to AM stations. I was always with my dad because I played sports growing up. So I was listening to, hey, it's Bobby J, who's on the line? And, so I'm listening to old ass songs, and my dad played a bunch of records growing up. So I'm an old soul. A long story short. So to answer your question though, yes, I won't call him a curse, but if the shoe fits, ... everywhere he goes, quarterbacks get injured. This is a fact. Again, I'm not projecting this onto him. I'm just taking facts. Something is up when Fitzpatrick shows up and one of your teammates decides to haul off and punch you in the face and break your jaw, and you're out 6 to 8 weeks, and that's how he gets in. Like, when shit like that starts happening, you go, okay, man, what the hell is up? Seriously, wait a minute. What are we doing? Like, guys that never get injured. He shows up, and Carson Palmer, all of a sudden, out. Here comes Ryan Fitzpatrick. Never missed a game. All of a sudden, he's in. Like, I can't make this shit up. He finds his way into the game. His very first season, I kid you not, the first game he played in was on the road at Houston against the Texans. As a rookie, the starting quarterback that season gets injured. Then the backup quarterback, Jamie Martin, gets injured. He comes in and he throws 4 touchdowns and rallies them from like a 27-3 deficit, and they win the game. In his first game action, 2 guys got hurt. He got in. And it's never stopped. So, I'm not saying. I'm just saying. Thank you for the super chat. Derek J. B. Got another super chat. This one is from Gabe Baby. Thank you for the super chat, Gabe Baby, who writes, what do you think of our chances of drafting Trey Lance? Not good. If you want me to be honest, if you want me to put a percentage on it, I'd say less than 25%. So less than a 1 in 4 chance. So let's put it at 23%. I love 23. You know that. 23%. Less than a 1 in 4 chance. A lot of things have to happen. They've got to be just over the moon for Trey Lance. They got to be able to go up and get him. You keep hearing these, discussions of guys falling down the draft board and this, that, and the third. Trey Lance isn't falling anywhere, man. Don't buy the hype, okay? And even if he falls, he ain't falling that damn far. You're still going to have to come up and get him. So, I don't like our chances of getting Trey Lance. Personally, I think he's going to end up in Carolina. That's my personal belief. I could be wrong, but I think he ends up in Carolina. We'll see. Got another super chat. This one is from Tony P56. Double up. Thank you for your super chat and doubling up. Tony P56, who writes, I saw your old Will Jack review, and man, was it funny. There's a lot of funny parts to that review because, one, it's an old video. So you get old, classic Louie T. Somebody said, hey, look, man, one thing's for sure, you were still funny as hell back then. I said, like, that's, he said, you still goofy as hell. That's what he said. I said, that's never going to change. That's who I am. Like, this isn't a facade that you see. Like, I'm not some caricature that I'm trying to pretend to be. Like, I'm a goofy dude. You meet me in person, I'm the same guy. Like, this isn't a pretend. This isn't a show. Like, this isn't a persona that I put on, a persona, excuse me, for the camera. Like, this is who I am. So it doesn't change. That was refreshing to hear Ryan Fitzpatrick say, like, when I go into these situations, because, half of the press conference was just him, having to explain to the media because they were so fascinated about a guy that's been in so many different spots. Like, how do you make friends and how is it different? He's like, look, I'm me. Like, I don't try to be something that I'm not. I don't try to live up to any of the expectations that people may have put on me by watching me on TV. I'm just me. I just come in and I be myself, and that's all I know how to do. And that's pretty much how I am. But another funny thing is, people was joking my hairline, like, oh man, that's back when you had a hairline. I'm like, look, I'm fighting a good fight over here, man. I don't know what else to do. I'm fighting a good fight. I can't control genetics. I just can fight the good fight. So it's a lot of funny. The editing was terrible, but I was on the come up, man, and I was making do with what I had back in the day. So I'm not ashamed of my work. I'm actually pretty proud of it. When I go back and watch, I say, man, that wasn't bad. I cringe at some of my old videos though. So, but yes, it was funny. I try to inject humor in what I do. It's cool to sit up here and just get information from people, but you get that from enough people that are robots, that are monotone in their delivery. You can get that from anywhere. Part of the reason that you guys are here chopping it up with me is because I told you I try to deliver the 3 E's. Okay, anytime I do a video, I try to, not always does this always come across, but I try to inject the 3 E's. I try to educate. I try to entertain, and there's another E. I don't know what the hell it is, but it made sense when I said it. But I always try to educate and entertain. And so you're going to get that from me all the time. I'm glad you enjoyed it. But the reason I did that, I put that in the comment section and pinned it, is just in case you guys wanted to know what kind of a football player we're getting. A lot of what he does as a football player hasn't really changed. He's just evolved and gotten better. He's gotten stronger, gotten bigger, has gotten better as a tackler, things of that nature. But a lot of the things still apply and ring true for who he is as a football player. So I wanted you guys to be able to see that. Atypical Brother, thank you for the super chat. Atypical Brother, greatly appreciate you. Atypical Brother writes, what up, Lou? Got a hypothetical. Would you choose Fitz, Dalton, or Tyrod Taylor? All 3 of them were available when Washington chose Fitz. I would have taken Fitz. Andy Dalton last year, with his opportunity with Dallas, showed me he is simply just a backup at this point. He's going to get a chance to start in Chicago. Good for him. We'll see what he does in Chicago, but they don't have more weapons than the Cowboys do, and I didn't think he played all that well at times last season. So there were times where Andy Dalton, like that Giants game when he came in for Dak, where Andy looked like, okay, Andy still got it. Red rifle. And then there were times where I'm like, that's a BB gun. That's not a rifle. All right? He's shooting some pellets over there. That's not impressive at all. I've never been a massive Tyrod Taylor fan. The only thing I can tell you is that I support him. 1, because he's a brother at the quarterback position. And then 2, he's from this area. Other than that, Tyrod Taylor is a game manager in the truest, most pure sense of the word. He's in rare form when talking about game managers. He's at the top of the list with Teddy B and Alex Smith. You don't get more game manager-ish than Tyrod Taylor. I'm good. We done seen our fair share of game managers around these parts. So, if you're going to go in a direction to try to upgrade, I would prefer it not be a game manager. If you're going to push a dude off on me and say, hey, This is the best I can do. At least let it be a dude that's going to sling it around, which is what Ryan Fitzpatrick is. I don't want the turnovers, but I've seen enough of the game managing to know that that ain't going to get you but 23 points. We did that all last year. That's why we didn't win a bunch of games that we should have won, because we couldn't score enough points. You can only go so far managing games. You're going to have to, at some point, take risks, push the ball down the field, and put it in the end zone. We didn't do that enough last year. So I would have taken Fitz. Got a super chat here from JP, my man John Perez. Thank you for the super chat. Who writes, Kyle Pitts or Surtain at 19 if they drop Lou. That's not even up for debate. It's Kyle Pitts. I'd take him 10 times out of 10. Wouldn't even hesitate. He's not falling to 19, but I wouldn't. He's a top 10 pick. I wouldn't be shocked if he goes to 6, at 6 to the Eagles. That's how good he is. I wouldn't be shocked if the Dolphins took him at 3. They're not going to, because they got Mike Gesicki, and he's balling right now. But I said that just to illustrate how good he is. He's going no earlier than 6. No later than probably 12 or 13 if he finds a way out of the top 10. I don't see how he finds his way out of the top 10, but other teams have needs. If he gets past Philadelphia at 6, I could see Detroit taking him at 7. Even though they just took a top 10 tight end already in Hawkinson, I would not subscribe to doing that again, but different regime. This new brass did not draft TJ Hawkinson, so we'll see. At the end of the day, if they fell in your hypothetical, I'm taking Kyle Pitts. No hesitation. Mark McKnight, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Mark McKnight writes, what up, Lou? Great show. If you were the GM of the Washington football team and our pick was next at 19, would you take linebacker JOK or quarterback Mac Jones, and why? If I were the GM, I would know how I feel about the offensive line. And if I felt like Mac Jones could thrive behind this offensive line. That's what it really boils down to, is can you build up a wall in front of him? Can you build up a barrier of protection around Mac Jones? If the answer is yes, take him. If you're confident in your ability to do that, take him. If you feel like you don't know if you can do that and you need a guy with wheels, then you don't take Mac Jones. You would take JOK. For me, and where we are right now, I would probably side with JOK. I don't know if I love Mac Jones enough to take him at 19 myself, personally, as a general manager. You know, you get fired for drafting first-round quarterbacks and having them not pan out. You know, that's why the Colts GM refuses to draft a quarterback in the first round, because he says, look, the minute I draft a guy in the first round and he doesn't work out will be the time where you guys decide you want to run me out of town. So if you ask me, the best way to secure your job is to not draft a first-round quarterback until you know I got the right guy. I don't think you can say definitively I got the right guy with Mac Jones at 19. So for me, I think I would just go with the linebacker, because I know he fits in what I want to do defensively, and he fits in today's NFL. But if I felt really good about Mac Jones, I would take him at 19. But I don't personally feel great about Mac Jones at 19 myself. So I would go with JOK. But if I were the general manager and I felt good about the offensive line and I felt equally as good about Mac Jones, I'd take him at 19. But my answer to your question is I would take the linebacker. So that's what I would do. Derek JB, thank you for the super chat and tripling up. Greatly appreciate you. My man Derek JB writes, if Taylor Heineke beats out Fitz in balls, do you think he is going to want more money, Fitz money plus more years? No, not after 1 year. You don't get to make demands if you're Taylor Heineke, because all they have to say is, okay, you did it once. It was so nice. Prove it to us. Do it twice. So all they got to say to him is, okay, that was great, man. That's why we gave you an opportunity. We thought you could do it. Do it again. Hey, even Ryan Fitzpatrick had a year. Do it again. And if he does it again, then his contract's up. And then you pay him. You know? Then you can pay him. But under no circumstance do you want to sign up long-term for Taylor Heineke, guarantee him a bunch of money, and he's only done it for one season. You know? That's how you get into trouble. So I don't think he would be in a position to demand that. They signed him to a 2-year deal for that specific reason, that if he won the job, they would have a chance to look at him again just to make sure. And if you get midway through the second season and he's kicking ass again, then we can start talking some turkey right now. We can start figuring out some money that fits the performance that you're giving us, and we go from there. So I wouldn't, with the contract that they signed him to, I wouldn't think that they would have to do anything after one good season. So we'll see. Trevor Patch, thank you for the super chat. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, Trevor Patch. Greatly appreciate you. Trevor writes, bring back the wishbone. Gibby, JD, and Samuel. Absolutely not. Okay. Absolutely not. I tell you what, Fitzpatrick will run the hell out of it though, but nah, don't do that. You get your quarterbacks killed in today's NFL doing that shit. John Livingston, thank you for the super chat and tripling up. Greatly appreciate you as always, my man JL Smooth writes, did you see Pitt's Paris Ford run a 4.9 40? A safety that I had in the late second round, early third round. That's awfully slow. Then Twyman with a 5.51. 40s aren't everything, but damn. You can have a bad day and run a 4.9. I mean, you gotta already be slow though. Like, I remember when Joe Hayden ran a slow 40. And everybody was like, whoa, what just happened? Remember, a wise man once said, fast guys run fast, slow guys run slow. It's only a story when the opposite happens. So Joe Hayden, one of the highest rated corners in that year's draft, you're expecting him to go out and run a sub 4.5. He runs a 4.6. And everyone's looking around like, did that just happen? Wait a minute. And there was this thought that, hey, man, wait a minute. That's not what the tape says. We had questions about your speed, but we didn't think you were that damn slow. And then, we find out he was nursing an injury. He tried to gut through it. It didn't go well. He healed up. He ran at his pro day. He ran like a 4.37 or whatever, 4 whatever. And the rest is history. Shit happens, is what I'm saying. But 4.9? Like, if you run a 4.5, on your worst day, you're not running a 4.9, right? If you run a 4.75 and you have a bad day, you can run a 4.9. So what that essentially tells me is he's not a burner. He's not a blazer. He's not a true difference maker from an athletic standpoint. But it's funny that we say that, because when you look at some of the better tight ends over the last couple of years, let's call it the last 7 years, these aren't 4 or 5 dudes. You get the rare breed, the Darren Wallers, the George Kittles of the world, the Travis Kelce's that can run. But when you think about Zach Ertz, and you think about some of these other guys, Kyle Rudolph and some of these guys, that Jason Witten, these weren't 4, 5, dudes. These weren't 4, 6, 5 guys. These were 4.7 guys, 4.75, 4.78 guys. And they just knew how to separate. So, 4.9, yeah, you had a rough day. He could just have had a bad day. But what it tells me, even on his best day, he's probably a 4.75 guy. He's not a 4.68 guy. Like, you don't get jumps like that. So shit happens is what I'm trying to tell you. If you're on the fence, the 40 time for me, all it is a confirmation of what I saw on tape. When I watch a guy, what a 40 time is okay. And when I'm watching a player, I make a note. He looks like he runs somewhere in this vicinity right here. And then when I see the 40, okay, that makes sense. If I write in my notes, this guy looks a little slow, and then he goes out and runs a 4.37, I'm like, what? Because I saw dudes running by you like you were standing still or you were stuck in cement or quicksand on film. Where's this 4.37 coming from? So that's when you start saying, okay, well, what happened? Like, why is there a discrepancy here from tape to running in a straight line? Like, why is there a big difference? So that's what the 40 is for me. It's not really a, you take a guy off your board type of thing. It's if you're on the fence about a player, the 40 can maybe bump him up. If it's slow, it can maybe bump him back. But it's really just a confirmation of what you saw, really, is what it is. And if there's a conflict, that's when you start asking questions. That's when I need answers. If I thought you were a lot slower and you ran faster, okay, so which is it? If I thought you were faster on tape and you ran a lot slower, okay, what's the problem? Now I need answers. That's all. So if he's a good football player, you can overlook the 40 time if he makes up for it in other ways. But there's certain positions you can't get past not being able to run. Tight end is one of those positions we can get by you not being able to run at a very high rate of speed if you know how to separate. If you can make tough catches in traffic or if you can block your ass off in the run game. We'll make an exception for you at the tight end position. But there are positions on the field where flat out, if you can't run, you can't play at this level. Tight end isn't one of them, though. Martin Matthews, thank you for the super chat and tripling up. Greatly appreciate you. Martin Matthews, my man, Double M, writes, hey, Louie, I don't think you received my first 2 texts, but if we draft a speedy wide receiver, sorry about that if I did miss those. If we draft a speedy receiver, put Curtis in the slot, draft a number 2 tight end, we will be an intimidating offense. So let's kind of analyze that for a second. You said, if we draft a speedy receiver, put Curtis in the slot, draft a number 2 tight end, we'll be an intimidating offense. Yeah. I don't think they are going, if we draft a speedy receiver, this is just my opinion and a hunch. Again, I don't know this to be a fact. Can't confirm nor deny this. If we draft a wide receiver at any point in this draft, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh round, the earlier you draft him, the earlier that guy gets on the field. Earlier, someone brought up a scenario in which, we take a receiver potentially at 19. And I kind of ruled that out. But I said if a guy like, Jalen Waddle or a guy like Devontae Smith falls into your lap at 19, how do you pass it up? I gave you the analogy to Dallas and them selecting CeeDee Lamb. They didn't plan on selecting CeeDee Lamb, but when you get that kind of value at like 18, which is where I think Dallas was when he fell into their lap, you're like, yo, how do we pass this up? If that were to occur, then yeah, you would put, Devontae Smith on the outside opposite of Terry and slide Samuel inside. And yeah, you're damn right. Even without another tight end number 2, if you put those trio of receivers with Logan Thomas on the field, that's problematic. With J.D. McKissick and Antonio Gibson in the backfield, that's problematic right there. But even if you don't add another receiver and we just got to rock with one of these dudes, Cam Sims or, AGG or Kelvin Harmon out there, and you slide Samuel inside and you add a tight end number 2, it changes things. It does change things. It wasn't often that we ever had a formational look where there was no running back on the field. So it's rare you're going to go 3 wide, 2 tights. Okay? Rare. With us. Because they believe too much in J.D. McKissick and Antonio Gibson. One of those guys is going to be on the field pretty much at all times. So I don't know if you'll ever have a formation where 3 receivers and 2 tight ends are on the field. Now, again, you have enough talent. It may force them to have to make some adjustments and say, hey, well, y'all gonna have to sit this one out. We want to get these 2 tight ends and all 3 of these receivers on the field at the same time. I don't see that happening though. But where that second tight end comes into play is when you decide you want to go 12 personnel or you want to go 13 personnel, which would require 1 receiver on the field, or 12 personnel where it requires 2 receivers on the field. That's where it would help you, because now you can get teams into their base personnel and maybe you get them in a mismatch situation. You can create mismatches. That's what you're looking to do, is create an advantageous situation for your team. And if you got a linebacker on a tight end that you feel like is a superior athlete, that's the matchup you're looking for. So, yeah, it would change this offense drastically if we were able to get a speedy receiver and kick Samuel inside. But it's not a necessity. I think tight end number 2 is more important than adding another receiver, personally myself. But, again, we will see. Got another super chat. This next one is from Superstar J. Thank you for the super chat. Superstar J, who writes, first of all, double up, it's the second one of the night too. Really appreciate you, Superstar J, who writes, CJ Mosley or Quan Alexander, either one worth it? No. For CJ, you would have to trade for him. Not looking to give up any trade capital. I don't know if the Jets are going to ultimately release him. He's been a bit of a disappointment in New York since they signed him in free agency. That was a cause of contention in New York, if you remember. The head coach was not happy about the amount of money spent that offseason on CJ Mosley and Le'Veon Bell. That was Mike McCagnon, the ex-GM. And that's why the then head coach, Adam Gase, went behind his back to management and essentially got him fired. And then Mosley got injured that year. And then Mosley opted out last year, so he really hasn't done a damn thing for the Jets since they paid him all that money. If you go back in the archives, you'll find out I'm not a massive CJ Mosley fan. He's way better than I gave him credit for, though. But I'm not a massive CJ Mosley fan. Quan Alexander, on the other hand, has had some injuries. He's a talented football player, but he's had some injuries. 2 major surgeries in consecutive seasons. I'm good on Quan Alexander. Still a young guy, though, as somebody pointed out on the show either last week or the week before. Still a young guy. I didn't realize how young he was until a viewer brought it to my attention when he was like, yo, you interested in Quan Alexander? And I'm like, nah, he's getting up there in age. He's like, well, technically, dude's only like 25 or 6, but, I think he's 26 going on 27 or whatever. But I didn't think he was that young. I thought he was much older than that. I thought he was, closer to 30 than he was 25. And he's closer to 25 than he is 30. So that was a shock to me, but still coming off of 2 major knee surgeries. So I'm good on both of those dudes, honestly. Again, linebacker, deep position in the draft. No need to spend on anybody in free agency. Tizzy Bang. I like that. Tizzy Bang. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, Tizzy Bang, who writes, I'm ready for the draft to see who's going to help us shave our pubic hairs on the Cowboys and Giants. If you're going to do that, do it with Manscaped. Use the promo code LouieT. Let me stop. Anyway, I can't wait to see who we draft either, man. I can tell you this. Shit's getting interesting in the division. Y'all seen what the Giants been doing? I'm going to talk about it on the podcast tomorrow. If I do a podcast. I think I'm going to do a podcast tomorrow. But shit's getting interesting in the division, man. I already told you how I feel about Dallas's roster. And the Giants, I think they've done a really good job of supplementing their roster this year. And don't forget, they get Saquon Barkley back. It's almost like adding another draft pick. They get him back healthy next year. They added a backup running back in Devontae Booker. They look like they're going to add a receiver. I'm not sure. I can't say that they're going to add Kenny Golladay, but it looks like they're going to add Kenny Golladay. They've added John Ross to what was already a solid wide receiver room. When you take into consideration, they just needed a number one wide receiver. It wasn't a terrible group to begin with. They just needed a number one to properly slot everyone. You get Kenny Golladay, and you slide Slayton to number two, and then you got two guys working the slot in Shepard and John Ross, and then they signed Kyle Rudolph. I don't know if you guys saw that, to go along with Evan Ingram. They got some shit out there, man. So I can't wait to see who we draft either. Shit's getting interesting. I just know that. Anyway, I digress. I think that's the last super chat that I have on the show. And I told you I have so much fun with you guys. I don't ever really realize what time it is, but we've been doing this for 3 hours and 20 minutes. Yikes, it's almost midnight. So with no more super chats, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. That was a lot of fun. And can't wait to go back and watch. I think I'm going to chop this one up and put some of these pieces out, because there were some really good parts of this show that I want to chop up and make into some shorts. So looking forward to chopping it up with you guys potentially tomorrow. If anything big happens with this team, as always, you'll see my face all up in your space. But in the event that nothing happens, I'm planning on doing a podcast tomorrow, but don't hold me to that. We'll see how my day goes and what I have going on. But right now, it looks like a podcast will be in the works for tomorrow. So look forward to chopping it up with you guys tomorrow at some point. But in any event, that's going to do it for me, your man, Louie T. Remember, I am a Washington fan, etched in burgundy and gold. My Washington spirit will never die. Washington spirit will never fold. Until we meet again, hail to our beloved Washington football team. Until next time, I'm your man, Louie T, signing off one final time before we get out of here. I am going to ask for you guys to help your man, Louie T, out by subscribing to the Louie T Network. Turn on your notification bell so you don't miss a thing. And one more thing. Hit the like button. Look, y'all have done a tremendous job tonight. 343 likes. That's probably the most likes I've ever seen in one video while I was actually live. I get those likes afterwards, but to have that show up while I'm on the air is tremendous. Let's get it to 350 on the way out if we can. Okay, still 450 of you out there. So if you can, hit the like button, please. With that said, you guys take care. Get some rest. Y'all telling me to get rest. I'm seeing y'all tell me to get some rest. Y'all get some rest. And we'll come back and do this thing again tomorrow, hopefully at some point. Until then, I'm your man, Louie T. See you next time.
LouieTeeNetwork.